Welcome in to the first edition of the 2025 season, the Giant Overreaction. And man, we got a lot to overreact to. The New York Giants are absolutely on fire in this preseason, and they get their second victory of the preseason against the New York Jets. And man, like, that's a rivalry. I don't know if y'all seen these New York Jets fans on social media. They are talking crazy. It was really good to see the New York Giants go out there. You know, we see that this roster from a what is on paper perspective, it looks incredible, and it gives New York Giants fans a lot to be hopeful about going into this season. But to see it actually play out and come to fruition in the preseason here is definitely something that is, exciting for all the fans across the country here, man. The New York Giants beat the New York Jets 31-12 on Saturday. Giants improved to 2-0 on the preseason, back-to-back games scoring over 30 points. I know it's the preseason, y'all, but we did not score 30 points like that a lot last season. So seeing our offense get out here and really be able to score points and get in the end zone and capitalize on the red zone opportunities, y'all know we talk about that a ton over here on Authentic in the Beard. It's either going to be maximizing your opportunities or you have to be extremely efficient in the red zone. And the New York Giants did a little bit of both in this game. 4 red zone trips. They scored on 3 of those red zone trips. 7 different New York Giants had receptions of over 20 yards, which is just something great to see. And Jaxson Dart, from a quarterback perspective, was not pushing the ball down the field, so that goes to show you that there's a lot of yak being accumulated from the New York Giants wide receiver core. 478 total yards of offense, 10 yards per pass. Am I watching the New York Giants? 10 yards per pass. That is fantastic. And I know we got rid of the quarterback that we've had here for 6 seasons, and that does absolutely help out the situation with the New York Giants, but 10 yards per pass is definitely something that had me smiling ear to ear on Saturday. Beat the Bills a week ago, 34-25. Next up, we got the Patriots on Thursday at 8 p.m. That's going to be the preseason finale. And then we can go off into the regular season. For those of y'all that have been following what I've been doing on Bleacher Report, you guys know that I've been talking about this offseason is going to fly by, dating all the way back to January. And here we are. We're just a couple of weeks away from the New York Giants' Week 1 opener against the Washington Commanders. Don't forget that the 53-man roster is going to be due on Tuesday, August 26th, which is basically a week from tomorrow. And that's it. The roster will be here. The New York Giants will have to get the business, and there's going to be a lot of tough decisions on this roster. The tight end room definitely got a lot of dogs in that room, and somebody's going to have to be the odd man out. I'm crossing my fingers that it's not Daniel Bellinger. For those of y'all that haven't had a chance to check out the video that we released a couple of weeks back on the tight end position, Daniel Bellinger is one of my favorites going into this season. I think he's a guy that just lacks opportunity. And he didn't get that chance against the Jets. He was dealing with something that kept him off the field. Hopefully it's not a serious injury. And then you got Chris Manhertz, who I think could possibly be the odd man out as well. Theo Johnson going out there making some plays in the game on Saturday. And 7th-round draft pick Thomas Fidone is having a decent camp, and he's been making plays. I think he is the one tight end that brings a different type of skill set to the table, in conjunction with the other guys that we have in that room. So I think Fidone's going to be a guy that makes the roster. Theo Johnson's obviously a guy that won't be cut, so I think it's going to be between Daniel Bellinger and Chris Manhertz when it's all said and done. But a lot to talk about today. We got 2 giant overreactions we're going to talk about as well, but I did want to break down the game a little bit. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about this game against the Jets and just kind of, y'all know I like to focus on the quarterback position, the skill positions. Definitely want to talk about Jaxson Dart. We're going to dive into the defense a little bit here, and we're going to speak about the offensive line. We'll try to not make this that long of a show, but I definitely missed my family over here on YouTube, so no promises. This show might go an hour. This show might go 4 hours. We'll see how things go. But let's get off into breaking this game down real quickly, and then we'll get off into these overreactions here in a second. All right, so like I said, the New York Giants go out there, beat the Jets 31-12. The Jets came out. Our defense, is the focal point of what is happening with the New York Giants in this offseason transitioning into the regular season. And the Jets came out heavy dosage of RTDB. Y'all know that's normally my style over here. I like it when the New York Giants run the ball. The Jets came out, and you would think that with a new quarterback, they'd want to get his feet wet and throw the ball a little bit more, but they absolutely were committed to the RTDB. And I think a lot of that has to do with the way that the New York Giants have played against the run, dating back to last season and the previous seasons before that. The New York Giants were ranked 26th against the run in 2024. They were allowing 136.2 rushing yards per game. The Jets came out and just committed to the run in a major way. They rushed for 65 yards in the first quarter. The Jets' second possession featured a ratio of 10 runs to just one Justin Fields pass. Braylon Allen was definitely out there showing his power and his skill set, looking like a third or fourth coming. I can't say a second coming, maybe a third or a fourth coming of a guy like Brandon Jacobs, but he did rush for 34 yards on 7 attempts. He was averaging 4.9 yards per carry on just the first 2 drives. The Jets ended up rushing for 141 yards on the day. That's 4.3 yards per carry. I thought the defense did a pretty decent job once we got down there in our own territory, doing a little bit of bend, don't break. I talked about this on Bleacher Report a little bit, that this defense, at least in the preseason, is reminding me a lot of the Patrick Graham defense that we saw in 2020. That was a top 10 unit, surprisingly. But, not really being able to stop the run. I'd say between 30 and 30, got down to the red zone, definitely buckled down. They only allowed 1 touchdown on the day on 2 red zone trips. The Jets were 8 of 17 on third down. I thought that this was a very unfair way to be able to judge what the New York Giants secondary was doing out there. And granted, we had a few starters not in the lineup, but when you're not getting that pressure after the quarterback and you have your secondary running around, it's going to make things look a lot more difficult than they really are. I did see a couple of plays. Paulson Adebo on 1 PBU. We saw Cordero Flott out there who was filling in for the role for Deonte Banks, who got injured in the joint practices against the Jets. A lot of people think that Cordero Flott could be the cornerback, too, for the New York Giants. In my opinion, I think that this is a bit of smoke and mirrors as far as the way that this competition is going for CB2. I do think that Deonte Banks is going to be the CB2 coming into the season. I just don't think that you can give up on a first-round talent like that. He is a guy that excels more in man coverage. But Cordero Flott at least showing you out there that he's a guy that can be a viable option for cornerback too. And if we need some depth in that department, which is a place of lack of strength for the New York Giants cornerback unit, we don't have much depth in that department. So having a guy like Cordero Flott, who is homegrown talent, be out there and possibly be a guy who, if he is called upon to get out on the field, can go out there and make plays, I think that is a good thing. Now, the Giants' first-team offense from the first pass, it was amazing. Seeing us push the ball down the field with Russell Wilson. He had that early 80-yard bomb to Bo Collins, which really should have been a touchdown. He was stopped on the 1-yard line there. And then I think it was Devin Singletary who ended up punching it in. But the Giants go 5 plays, 95 yards for the touchdown on the first drive. Russell Wilson finished 4 of 7 for 108 yards, 1 interception, which looked like a bit of a miscommunication between him and Bo Collins on that. But nonetheless, I'm not mad at that type of interception. When you're pushing the ball down the field that way and being aggressive, sometimes things like that are going to happen. But it's better than watching your quarterback drop back and just dink and dunk his way down the field for the whole entire season. So it's good to see Russell Wilson going out there and, just pushing the ball down the field. That's something we want to see. As far as the RTDB from our perspective, it wasn't quite what you want to see from the New York Giants running back room. Outside of Tyrone Tracy, I think Tyrone Tracy had a pretty decent day, averaging 5.6 yards per carry, 7 rushes for 39 yards. Turbo Miller has been a guy that a lot of New York Giants fans have been talking about throughout the duration of this camp going into the preseason. Let me tell y'all my beef with Dante Miller. Great in the pass attack, right? He's been maybe our best receiving running back and maybe even our best receiver, period, during the preseason. I mean, he caught all 4 of his targets, 4 receptions for 43 yards. We saw a lot of that in the last preseason game against the Buffalo Bills as well. It's the rushing for me with Dante Miller. Between the tackles, absolutely struggling. He was averaging 3.4 yards per carry, 5 rushes for 17 yards. And there was just a play that stood out for me. It was on the goal line when Jaxson Dart was leading the offense down the field. And we got down to the 1-yard line. They give the ball to Turbo Miller. And he really just has to beat one man to the outside of the tackle. And being that he's the speedy type of running back that he is, when it came time to utilize his power, kind of fell short, got stonewalled at the goal line. And I know Turbo Miller's not a goal line running back, but you can't have a running back that's going to be out there on the field and be a liability when he's running the ball. Love what he brings to the screen game. Love what he brings to the passing attack. I think we're going to see a lot of similarities in what Cam Scatterbo can bring to the passing attack as well once he gets healthy off this hamstring injury. I thought it was a good day for Turbo Miller, but just between the tackles, I want to see a little bit more of durability, a little bit more toughness, a little bit more ruggedness, and just be a little bit more gritty coming through those interior lanes when he's rushing the ball. But nonetheless, a decent day, especially when you consider what he did in the pass attack. He had the most receptions of any New York Giant on the day, so that's a good thing. The screen game was clicking all day long. We saw that with Theo Johnson. Johnson on his one reception as well. 30-yard screenplay that he had got. You could call it maybe a shuffle pass from Jaxson Dart when he came in the game for just one play. Some people have speculated that Brian Daboll wanted to catch Jaxson Dart off guard, put him in a scenario where it was a bit of like relief for him, and that's why he played the one play. I don't know. I kind of speculated that it could have been Russell Wilson was dealing with something as simple as maybe a cleat or tying a cleat or whatever. Who knows what it was, but at the end of the day, we saw Jaxson Dart come in for one play and, succeed, and that's what you want to see. You want to see a guy coming off the bench without getting those warm-up throws and be able to at least go out there and make plays. And Theo Johnson, once he caught the ball, the yak that he got on that play was absolutely amazing to see. We have not seen those type of plays from our tight ends dating back to last season, so that was great to see. Jalen Hyatt, the deep comeback that he had ran, got the 21-yard gain on that. Love seeing those things because I know it's preseason. Everybody wants to see the flashy plays from Jalen Hyatt, catching the deep ball down the field, taking the top off of these secondaries. But for Jalen Hyatt to be able to succeed this year, he's going to have to be able to excel on those intermediate routes, and that's something that we did not see last season. If you want to be, the judge for yourself, I recommend you go check out every one of the snaps from Jalen Hyatt from 2024. I have them all compiled on our YouTube channel here on Authentic in the Beard, so you can check it out for yourself. A lot of people like to talk about Jalen Hyatt struggling versus press man, and that's the reason why Brian Daboll doesn't want to put him on the field, but there's no truth to that. Last season, I think that a lot of these defensive coordinators that were scheming, I guess you could say scheming for Jalen Hyatt, they looked at him as a deep down-the-field threat, and they knew that was really the only tool that he had in his bag. So when you look at the way that defenses approached playing Jalen Hyatt, and Darius Slayton for that matter, both of them did not see a lot of press man coverage last season. For Jalen Hyatt, for the most part, most teams played him 10 to 12 yards off the ball. The Seattle Seahawks showed him a lot of press man coverage, and really Jalen Hyatt would not have got on the field last year if Malik Neighbors and Darius Slayton were not struggling with injuries. So it's good to see Jalen Hyatt going out there and making those intermediate type of receptions, because those are the type of plays that are going to set up the deep down the field shots later on in the season. Jalen Hyatt has to show you that he's a well-rounded receiver that has a Swiss Army knife in his tool package, right? He cannot be a guy that, he's just going out there and running go balls and running deep routes the entire game. And last season we saw a ton of that, and quite frankly, Jalen Hyatt was utilized as a decoy last season. And I know that was why, or at least one of the reasons why Jalen Hyatt was frustrated with not only his performance, but with the lack of opportunity that Brian Daboll and his coaching staff was giving him. But it was good to see that 21-yard comeback, crispy route, throttled down, hit the brakes real nice, and we're going to need to see more of that. Lil Jordan Humphrey has been shining this offseason. And even before the preseason, Lil Jordan Humphrey was a guy that, I always knew was very capable, dating back to his days with the Broncos and with the New Orleans Saints. He's always been a guy that can make plays, a big body wide receiver, and I like that he brings a skill set to the New York Giants wide receiver core that none of the other receivers truly have. A lot of people, including myself, have campaigned to bring in a guy like Gabe Davis for the New York Giants, who is still a free agent out there right now and has been dealing with an injury in the offseason. But Lil Jordan Humphrey is, I don't even want to say a poor man's version of Gabe Davis. I think he does a lot of the things that Gabe Davis can do. He can stretch the field. He doesn't do it necessarily with his top-end speed, but he finds ways to stack DBs and be able to go up and high point some of these 50-50 balls. And we've been seeing that throughout the duration of the preseason. He had 3 receptions for 20 yards. There was one pass interference call that was called not on him, but on the defender that was covering him. And I did see him kind of give up on the route. I didn't like seeing that, but when I saw the all-22, he was definitely being held. So I guess that's why he kind of gave up on the play. But Lil Jordan Humphrey is absolutely a guy I think that should make this New York Giants roster. But it is a crowded wide receiver room, especially when you get down there to the wide receiver 3, 4, and 5 positions. Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson pretty much have their positions locked up. But when it comes to guys like Jalen Hyatt, Bo Collins, Juice Wells, Lil Jordan Humphrey, Zach Pascal, all these guys are going to be fighting for just a couple of spots, and a couple of them are absolutely going to have to be the odd man out. And speaking of Juice Wells, he looked really good in this preseason game as well. He led the New York Giants with 5 targets. He had 3 receptions for 13 yards. He had that near touchdown where he ended up getting tackled down there near the goal line and showing a lot of fight and a lot of tenacity, trying to find his way into the end zone. Hasn't had a lot of opportunity here in the preseason. You did see that there was an emphasis to try to target him and get him the ball this week. Also, you can't forget about Montrell Washington as well, who's been making a ton of plays here in the offseason during training camp. the first preseason game against the Buffalo Bills. He was absolutely our unsung hero of the day and really shined for that wide receiver core. He had, what's my guy? What's the DB from the Buffalo Bills? Damar Hamlin. He put Damar Hamlin on some absolute skates on a few plays. And, man, just looking like a little baby Victor Cruz out there wearing that number 80. So a lot to be excited about as far as the wide receiver room goes for the New York Giants. I still think the New York Giants have to find a way to bring in a true bona fide wide receiver 1B for the future. That doesn't necessarily have to happen this season. It hasn't happened in the offseason just yet, and you can't get it all done in one offseason. Rome was not built in one day, and the New York Giants rebuild will not be rebuilt in one day as well. But we got to give Joe Schoen his props over the last couple of offseasons here. He's been doing a fantastic job in free agency, and I think that he's hit, we'll call it, I kind of want to call it an inside the park home run, but we'll call it a good triple here in the offseason as far as the drafts go over the last two. Because, I mean, you look at some of these younger players that he's brought in over the last two drafts, and all these guys look like they're going to be contributors for the New York Giants. So that's great to see. Now, let's talk about the man of the hour here one time, man. Y'all know it's Jaxson Dart. Let's pull up the statistics on the screen here. Jaxson Dart, man, and for those of y'all that don't know, when we were, approaching the draft and building our hierarchy of quarterback rankings, a lot of people were surprised that I had Jaxson Dart as my quarterback too. There was a extreme emphasis on a Cam Ward agenda in the offseason. I mean, even dating back to the end of the regular season last year, I was telling y'all we need to go out there and get Cam Ward. And we all knew that the Tennessee Titans were going to take Cam Ward with the number 1 selection, and the New York Giants just fell out of that pick. So the next man up was the guy that we were going to have to target. A lot of people wanted that to be Shedeur Sanders. I put out a video right before the draft saying that the New York Giants should absolutely not spend the 3rd pick on Shedeur Sanders. I wouldn't have minded if they drafted Shedeur Sanders in the 2nd round, or even where they drafted Jaxson Dart. I don't know if I would have traded up to go out there and get a guy like Shedeur Sanders, because I saw a lot of deficiencies on his tape. But nonetheless, I had Jaxson Dart as my quarterback too. And things are definitely just coming to the light now with Jaxson Dart. He is on the radar of not only the New York Giants fan base, he is on the radar of the entire NFL. I mean, this guy was on the front page of NFL.com after the weekend slate of games, and everybody knows it now that Jaxson Dart is looking like a guy that's going to be one of those guys for the New York Giants and potentially could be the next real deal franchise quarterback for this franchise. Dart took over late in the first half, and he took over behind the New York Giants starting offensive line outside of Greg Van Roten, who ended up coming off the field, and we substituted in Evan Neal. And it was all up-tempo for Jaxson Dart, and I love seeing that. That's something that we have not seen from Russell Wilson. And Jaxson Dart comes into the game, not on the first drive in the first half, but once we get to the second half, it's all up-tempo and hurry-up offense, and I love to see that. Finished the day 14 of 16 for 137 yards, 2 total touchdowns. He had 1 on the ground, 1 through the air. He had a quarterback rating of 123.2. The dude is just showcasing everything that I saw on his tape, and I know a lot of fans don't have the luxury of seeing a lot of the All-22 coming out of college for some of these quarterbacks, but shout out to my plug, man. He definitely blessed me with a bunch of All-22, so I was able to see pretty much every game of Jaxson Dart's collegiate career on All-22, and that gave me the confidence in this kid because he showed the mobility. He showed the moxie. A lot of people, when I posted that I had Jaxson Dart as quarterback too, in my rankings, would come in and say, well, what about that game against Florida where he fell apart in the last 2 minutes of the game and threw 2 interceptions, what could have been 3 interceptions, and after having opportunity after opportunity to go out there and win that game, he fell short. That happens to every quarterback. I think in this day and age of social media, and, I kind of tried to deny this in the last couple of years, but you're starting to see it come to light even more. This is a extreme clickbait society when it comes to media now, right? And all the new age journalists now, they want to get eyes on the type of content that they are doing or the journalism that they are putting out there. And in return, you get a lot of reaches when it comes to not only the quarterback position, but just across the board. People just want you to click on what they're doing. And the hot takes and the outlandish, over-the-top type of takes are the takes that tend to get a little bit more attention. And even on Twitter, you're starting to see the fan fall victim to this even more. You're seeing guys that, they'll highlight one play from a guy's, total attempts in a game, in a preseason game at that, and completely rule them off. Now, I like to post the quarterback compilation so that fans can see it for themselves and come to their own determination. I posted the 4 passing attempts from Justin Fields in this game against the New York Giants on Twitter, and across, I mean, the tweet went completely viral and everyone losing their mind over Justin Fields, right? I'm a big Justin Fields supporter. I think he's a quarterback that's very capable, has difficulty seeing things down the field, but nonetheless is a playmaker. But from a preseason game, with all these quarterbacks, from Justin Fields to Jaxson Dart to Shedeur Sanders to Dylan Gabriel to Tyler Shuck to Spencer Rattler, there's so many overreactions. And that's what we're going to be talking about today here, obviously on the Giant overreaction. But I thought that Jaxson Dart did a great job just showcasing the mobility from college, in and out of the pocket as well. You know, being a runner when he has to break the pocket, but also staying in the pocket and standing tall. He came out after this game and he said he's never played behind an offensive line that blocked that well. And I really disagree with him on that. I do think that there were some clean pockets on the day, but Jaxson Dart is showing you that the decisiveness at the quarterback position, what that can do for your offensive line. And when we start talking about the offensive line a little bit more, I will break down some of that and how it benefited the offensive line and all the players up front for the New York Giants as well. But I just love what I'm seeing from Jaxson Dart. He's working all the levels from short to intermediate. Not too many deep shots in this game, obviously. He had the 20-yard touchdown to Greg Dulcich, who's another tight end that I didn't mention when I talked about the tight ends at the opening of the show. And it's also going to be very difficult to try to cut a guy like Greg Dulcich off this roster because he is a contributor. And a beautiful play call from Brian Dable and Mike Kafka on that touchdown to Greg Dulcich. They showed that toss to the left side earlier in the game. I think they ran that to Turbo Miller, and then they came back and ran the fake toss to the right, and the tight end seam to Greg Dulcich right down the middle of the field, and a beautiful throw from Jaxson Dart. Now, you're seeing with Jaxson Dart at the quarterback position that the game is not too fast for him. I know it's preseason, but even while the New York Giants were running the hurry-up offense, and as I was creating the compilation of Jaxson Dart that I posted on our channel, you know, there's no replays in doing that. I have to get the play live. As Jaxson Dart was rushing the New York Giants offense to the line of scrimmage, I was having difficulties keeping up with just recording the play. So seeing him go in and out of the huddle, crispy like that, tight like that, and we're seeing that from the first team as well in both games. From Russell Wilson in this game against the Jets and the game against the Buffalo Bills, what I want you to pay attention to when we get to the regular season, or if you go back and you look at those two games, look at how crispy Russell Wilson comes out of the huddle and how fast the New York Giants offense gets to the line of scrimmage. These are things that are just little nuances and little details that we did not see from the previous quarterback. So I love seeing that. And Jaxson Dart just seems like a guy right now, in my opinion, he is ready to go. If the New York Giants were forced and in a position right now to start Jaxson Dart week 1 against the Washington Commanders, maybe you might disagree with that decision and you want to see Jaxson Dart be, you know, groomed and developed and be completely perfectly ready to go when it's time for him, you know, a la my doppelganger in Jordan Love. Even still, if you disagree with it, you would not think that there would be any issue with Jaxson Dart being not ready going out there in week 1. I think that he would give this team a great shot to win, and we're seeing that throughout this preseason. Mike Garafolo tweeted this out yesterday, said Jaxson Dart is 26 for 35 for 291 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown over his first 2 games with the New York Giants. More than anything, he's passing the eye test of being in command. Now, you're going to get the cliche answers from a lot of New York Giants fans that want to give pushback, that maybe didn't have Jaxson Dart at the top of their quarterback rankings, or maybe just want to wait until the regular season before they crown him. If you want to crown him, right? But at the end of the day, I know it's preseason, but Jaxson Dart is passing the eye test, and people are going to compare it to Daniel Jones preseason. But don't forget this one key thing that happened with Daniel Jones in his preseason. Daniel Jones did have a great preseason, right? He had a completion percentage over 80%, and he looked the part in the preseason, which probably aided his position in starting in week 3 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in that 2019 season when Eli Manning really wasn't looking all that bad. But a thing that a lot of people forget about is that the fumble issues for Daniel Jones in the preseason showed up. I can't remember how many fumbles it was. It might have been 2 or 3 fumbles in that preseason, but we absolutely saw a guy who had a lack of awareness in the pocket when it came to having that type of, you know, just that know-how and knowing and feeling pressure rather than having to see it. With Jaxson Dart, when you look at the pocket presence, the manipulation, and the awareness, it's night and day from what we saw from Daniel Jones early on in his preseason career as well. Now, PFF gave Jaxson Dart a 67.4 grade. It was the second lowest grade of all New York Giants quarterbacks. And when I posted the PFF grades to my Twitter page, a lot of people had a lot of pushback. Now, I heard comments like PFF is dog shit. I heard, don't trust PFF's metrics. I had one dude tell me that I don't know why PFF uses these odd metrics to come to the determination on quarterbacks. And then I asked him, what are the metrics? Even though I kind of knew what the metrics were, I just wanted to see if he knew. And he said, I don't need metrics to be able to judge a quarterback. And I'm like, well, how are you dismissing the metrics that they are using while still saying, you don't need the metrics? At the end of the day, PFF is just a different opinion. It is not the holy grail, as I've heard some people say on Giants Twitter Spaces before, which was one of the most asinine comments I've ever heard. I think that people look at PFF as a negative when it is against us, and people look at it as a positive when it is in our favor. Just take it for what it is. Utilize it as a tool that you can match up with the All-22 or whatever tape that you might look, whether it be the condensed game or a full game. Just take that and view it as something that you can compare to what you're seeing with your eyes. The Jaxson Dart compilation is live on the YouTube channel right now. You can go check that out. And I posted all the PFF grades to my Twitter. You can take those and compare them and see if they line up to you. I thought the grade was a little bit low, but at the end of the day, PFF grades are not statistics, and people need to understand that. PFF grades every player emphasizing contribution over the outcome of the play. So I ended up asking a former PFF employee, Sam Monson, who is doing some new content now outside of PFF. Shout out to him, because I even prefaced it by saying, I know you don't work with PFF anymore, but was there a reason why Jaxson Dart was graded lower than Russell Wilson and Tommy DeVito, even though each of the other two quarterbacks had an interception? And Sam Monson said, nope, no reason except DeVito's interception won't be a negative because the ball was deflected and bounced into the defender's hands. So they're not looking at the result of the play. And when you look at the play with Tommy DeVito, I thought it was a pretty decent throw. I mean, it was some tight covers there, not a lot of separation. But at the end of the day, PFF is not crediting that as a negative. Take this into account as well. Jaxson Dart had a fantastic day. I'm hype, y'all. Like, I'm watching these games during the preseason. It is nothing like how I watched the games during the 2024 regular season in the previous 5 years. I watched those games pretty much the way you see me right now. One leg crossed, chilling, not getting up out of my seat for any big plays. When Jaxson Dart is at the quarterback position, I am excited. When third downs come around, I feel like we're going to convert those third downs. I feel the same way about Russell Wilson as well. It gives you that confidence as a fan when you have a quarterback under center that you know is competent, that can go out there and make the necessary plays and not go out there and make boneheaded plays that are going to put the New York Giants or compromise the New York Giants as a team. Now, again, take this into account, though. Jaxson Dart, 137 yards? 137 yards on the day. Almost 50 of those yards came on screenplays. He was 5 for 5 on screenplays. We can't take that away from him, but just take that with a grain of salt. He only had one attempt that was over 20 yards in this game against the Jets, and 12 of Jaxson Dart's 16 attempts were 9 yards or less. Now, when we talked about Shedeur Sanders entering the 2025 NFL Draft, one of my biggest knocks that I saw on Shedeur's tape was the amount of throws that we saw at the line of scrimmage, behind the line of scrimmage, or 9 yards or less. Shedeur Sanders, in his 2024 season with Colorado, 74.9% of his throws were 9 yards or less. 74.9% of his attempts were 9 yards or less. And when he pushed the ball down the field, I did not see a great emphasis on accuracy or a great emphasis on anticipation the way that a lot of other quarterback evaluators were seeing with Shedeur Sanders. But nonetheless, it's something to just take into consideration here with Jaxson Dart, that a good 3/4 of the throws were 9 yards or less. So just keep that in mind. PFF grades, they hold weight for me, but they are not the holy grail for me. That's pretty much the way that I view PFF grades. Now, I'm going to post these PFF grades for our offensive line on the screen here because I definitely want you guys to check that out as we go off into a segment here about Evan Neal just a little bit, and then we'll get off into a couple of these overreactions. Big shout out to everybody in the building, man. I see a lot of y'all in the building. Tried to get through that recap as fast as we could here. Salute to all the new viewers here. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button. If you're digging the vibes here, we're going to be doing these every Monday throughout the entire duration of the season. And I've been experimenting. I've been talking to a couple of people about this, and every time I say I don't like talking about stuff before I put it out there in the atmosphere. But I am experimenting with thinking about possibly going live every day during the New York Giants season, at least Monday through Fridays. And y'all know we go live on Sundays in the mornings for the fantasy football show as well. But I am thinking about at least doing a small, short segment of live shows every day during the New York Giants season. But we will absolutely be here every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. here for the New York or for the Giant overreaction. Salute to all of y'all that are in the building here rocking out with us today. Now, these are the PFF grades from every New York Giants offensive lineman. I do want to tap in with the chat real quick here and just see how everybody feeling. I know New York Giants Nation is in the building one time, man. I appreciate y'all pulling up. You know, every time I say Giants Nation is in the building now, Bobby Skinner pops in my head. And I thought about, well, Giants Nation is Bobby's show now. Do I kind of want to avoid that? But nah, man, as New York Giants content creators, we got to stick together here. So I think that Giants Nation is in the building thing is something that we can use to kill two birds with one stone here. Now, I'm not against the violence against the animals or anything. It's just a little pun there. But I definitely think that's something we can use through the duration of the rest of this, the lifeline of this channel for real. But I'll just tap in with y'all at the we'll go midpoint in the chat here. Oh, my dog East Coast Gridiron is in the building. What's going on, Dante? Let's put this one on the screen here. Dante said the biggest one was the Dylan Gabriel interception, bro. I said y'all can be pro Shedeur without discrediting others' performances. This is a fact, man. And I saw this. Listen, I'm so ecstatic that the New York Giants and our fan base don't have to deal with the shit show that is going on right now with the Cleveland Browns. If you look in any post that has anything to do with the Cleveland Browns and you look in the comment section, all it is a bunch of fluff, agendas, a bunch of overreacting. I thought Shedeur Sanders had a great debut. I thought Dylan Gabriel had a great debut. The interception, you had two receivers in the same zone there, and then the one receiver, as the ball's getting to him, just puts his hands up like this, allows one DB to go between two wide receivers and take that interception all the way to the house. You saw Dylan Gabriel go after the play, and when he couldn't make the tackle, you saw it in his energy, like, man, what the hell are you doing? Like, what the hell are you doing? And I thought on the fumble as well, and I did a compilation of Dylan Gabriel, if y'all want to check it out on the channel as well, of all his throws and runs. But on the handoff, you saw that although Dylan Gabriel was kind of out of position and reaching out to try to get that handoff in between, in the breadbasket of his running back, the running back closed his arms down a little bit too early and closed it on the ball. So I kind of put that on both of them. But you're right about that, Dante. A lot of overreactions happening in that Cleveland market. It's unfortunate for them as fans, and you're seeing a lot of fans fall victim to it. I even think, so on Twitter, we have I won't even say we because I didn't coin this, but Giants Twitter has a nickname for a lot of the people or a lot of the fans that overtly supported Daniel Jones. I think that the people that are overtly supporting Shedeur Sanders are even worse than that crowd because it's like there's just too many agendas here. Let it all pan out. Shedeur Sanders' debut looked pretty good. Some good, some bad as far as the pocket goes. But if you watch these two quarterbacks tape, none of this surprised you, to be honest. Like, they look like what they looked like in college. I thought from an arm velocity, arm talent, standpoint, Dylan Gabriel looks like the better quarterback. I thought Shedeur mentally did a few things better than Dylan Gabriel. Both the quarterbacks, I think, are capable, and I wish both of them much success. But big shout out my dog, Dante, man. Y'all should go subscribe to Dante. I look at Dante and East Coast Gridiron as probably the best outlet right now for not only collegiate quarterbacks and collegiate players, but even high school players coming out. If you want to get, that early, get around the edge kind of type of content, before a lot of people start talking about prospects, Dante and East Coast Gridiron are definitely the people to check out. Let me tap in with the Super Chats first. I know y'all, spending your hard-earned money that you go to your 9-to-5s or however y'all getting that money. I might even be making an assumption saying it's hard-earned money because not all money is hard-earned. I try to make the easiest dollars I can possibly make when it comes to doing stuff in the recording studio. But let's tap in with the Super Chats real quick one time, and then we'll get off into this offensive line conversation. Big shout out to my dog one time. Door Gunner is in the building. He said flying up from Florida to be there week 1 against the New York Giants. That's what's up, man. That's going to be a great game to be at. Them tickets are slapping right now, man. And that is definitely a product of Jaden Daniels at the quarterback position. That's going to be a great one. I'm looking forward to that week 1 matchup. I think that if the New York Giants have any opportunity of beating the Commanders, it's going to be in that week 1 matchup. The Commanders definitely, have dealt with their fair share of turmoil in the offseason here, with the Terry McLaurin contract, which my plug is saying that contract will be done before week 1, and it'll be worth $30 million. So just keep that in mind for all the Commanders fans out there tuning in. I do think Terry McLaurin will be good to go. Just a few little just shaky little issues, with the Washington Commanders in the offseason here. I think that defense still needs a little bit of upgrades, but hoping to catch them slipping week 1 a little bit and possibly sneak out of Northwest Field with a victory. That would be amazing for my New York Giants. I know Door Gunners out there supporting the Commanders, but you know what it is, man. My New York Giants are coming for blood week 1. And we'll see how things go. It's going to be a great recap. Make sure y'all pull up during the season when we do those recaps. the beard will be pulling up for those, and we're going to have a lot of interesting conversation going on. Big shout out to Door Gunner for the $2 super chat. Shout out my dog, professionally certified hater. He says, unbiased Jets fan here. Giants defensive line has potential to be the best. Dable is playing to Dart's strengths early. We didn't play Sauce, Quincy, Q, JJ, and WM. That's very true. The Jets didn't have a lot of their starters out there. The New York Giants didn't have a lot of their starters out there either. I mean, no Darius Slayton, no Malik Neighbors, no Dexter Lawrence. One of our safeties didn't play in that game. No Deonte Banks, no Tyler Nubin. Who else was out? Who else was missing? Oh, no Andrew Thomas. And I think I got everybody there. So, yeah, not a lot of starters, but nonetheless, you did have a good chunk of starters out there as well. It was good to see these two teams go at it. I like that you started this off with unbiased Jets fan here. I think there were a lot of overreactions to the New York Jets' performance against the New York Giants. It's just a preseason, and these are just things like you never know which team's coming out with an extremely vanilla package or which team is going to try to maybe overly kind of exploit how one team plays against the screen. I think the Giants have been doing a good job of that during the entire preseason. But big shout out my dog PCH one time in the building, man. Appreciate you. I see my dog Lou Mateo coming in hot one time with the $2 super chat. He says, NYG, new vibe Giants. It's looking like it, man. We're definitely on the up and up. And it's exciting to be a New York Giants fan. Finally, I've been podding on this YouTube channel since 2019. And it was exciting in 2019. New quarterback, we had some players on the roster that were, definitely a reason to be excited about. But by the time we got to about 2021, it started to get really ugly. So it's good to, kind of hit the reset button here, a little bit of control, alt, delete vibes, and really have a shot now, and seeing some of the youth start to progress and bringing in new players, guys like Abdul Carter, guys like Malik Neighbors a year ago that, should be certified superstars for this team. And we've always talked about that over here, about the superstar talent, how necessary it is to have at least a few superstars on your team. And the New York Giants, although they did go to the playoffs in 2022 and won a playoff game, they still lacked that superstar talent, even with a guy like Saquon Barkley and Xavier McKinney on the roster. And when you allow guys like that to walk in free agency, you got to find a way to supplement for that. And I thought that Joe Schoen made an egregious mistake by committing to Daniel Jones, but not only committing to Daniel Jones, but committing to trying to compete and win right now while not signing some of your best players. If you're going to try to compete and pay your quarterback $60 million a year, or $160 million over the duration of the contract, 40 a year, then you're going to have to keep pieces around him for him to be able to succeed. Give him the best opportunity to win. I thought it was a bit of an ass-backwards approach to sign Daniel Jones to the contract, and I know they did try to sign Saquon Barkley before that, but then to allow Saquon to walk in free agency in the same season that Darren Waller retired, you were pretty much losing the two best weapons that Daniel Jones had within that offense, and expecting a guy like Malik Neighbors to come out and be able to supplement for what those two guys brought to the offense, I thought was unfair, not only to Daniel Jones, but absolutely unfair to Malik Neighbors as a rookie at the age of 21 years old as well. But I do agree, Lou, definitely new vibes right now. I'm tampering my expectations. Told a couple of homies in my Twitter space the other day that, I'm not sipping that Kool-Aid until it's completely mixed and ready to pour. And right now, I think the New York Giants have a lot to iron out here before we get to week one. And also that schedule is absolutely brutal. I know a lot of people want to ignore it and say, those are last year's records. Well, the Washington Commanders are a really good team, on paper and from last year's record. The Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl last year as well. And I know that was last year, but they're coming into this season with pretty much a similar or same roster, a few moving parts there. The Dallas Cowboys are only going to get better with Dak Prescott in the lineup. And you look across the board at some of these games that we got to go up against as far as the AFC West goes. You're looking at teams like the Chargers. You're looking at teams like the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's going to be very difficult as far as the beginning of that schedule. So new vibes, I do agree. But at the same time, y'all know me. I don't tell people how to fan. I encourage people with data, with statistics, with facts, with proof, with tape, all of that stuff. But I'm never going to tell anybody how to fan. Be excited. I think this is the time to be excited because we got a clean slate going into 2025. Shout out my dog, Lou Mateo, one time. Dorgunner coming in with another $2 super chat one time. Appreciate that, fam. I appreciate all you guys supporting the channel. Y'all know how important that is to us, raising the bar on this channel. Door Gunner says, no BSJ and Forbes out there covering anymore. That's very true. I do think that Benjamin St. Juste gets a bad rap for his time with the Washington Commanders. I mean, I'm not saying he's a, top-level type of player or anything. He definitely was not on that Emmanuel Forbes level. And honestly, when I went to training camp that year when Emmanuel Forbes was a rookie, he looked really good in camp. I think he needs to bulk up, get a little bit more strength to his game. I want to say he went over there to the Rams, but I want to say the Rams might have cut him already. Wishing him well, but you are absolutely right about that, Door Gunner. That's a fact right there. And Door Gunner also coming in with another $2 super chat here one time. He says, when healthy, our O-line should be way better. That's a fact. And I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure Door Gunner is a Commanders fan. I think this statement here you have on the screen could apply to both teams, though. The New York Giants, when they're healthy, I don't even think the offensive line is something that people should be worrying about when the Giants are healthy. And same thing goes with the Commanders. I mean, the Commanders, they upgraded that offensive line in a major way here in the offseason. They drafted Josh Connolly out of Oregon with the first-round selection, and then they also brought in Laramie Tunsil from the Houston Texans. So now you just got more depth. You got more guys, more bodies on that line. And all of this for a quarterback that's entering his second year, they seem to have solidified a lot of things up front. And that's why I expect Jaden Daniels to have a even better sophomore year than he had as a rookie. I think from a passing standpoint, Jaden Daniels left a lot out there to be desired, but also a lot of that came from Cliff Kingsbury being, a play caller that wanted to make things very palatable for his quarterback, and he did a great job of doing that in his rookie season. So, it's going to be a tough year going up against those Commanders this year for the Giants. I think we can split, but it's going to have to take a great performance in week one, and we got to catch them slipping early on there. Door Gunner coming in with another $2. He said Tunsil, Coleman, TB, Cosme, and Connolly is better. Absolutely, man. You guys got a lot of dogs up front on that team, man. So big shout out to y'all. I know y'all are looking for a much improved season this year from the Commanders. I think you guys might win less games and maybe not make it as far as the NFC Championship game this year. But I do think this will be another year of progress for the Washington Commanders. All right, so to not keep this show, running for 3 hours, I want the replay to be very, just receptible for the people that do check this out. We'll try to keep this show kind of moving here a little bit. I do see a question from my dog one time. I see Michael Knights is in the building one time. He said, so all of the NFC East is getting better, right? Why can't the Giants be getting better also? I mean, that's up to your determination of how you want to view it. If you think the New York Giants didn't get better this year, I don't know what you're watching. That New York Giants defense has made a ton of upgrades, from drafting a guy like Abdul Carter, from bringing in the only free agent signing that I wanted to bring in Paulson Adebo, who was probably the top cornerback on the market. I do think that Joe Shane kind of paid him a little bit too much. Bringing in Javon Holland, who you could say is a fringe top 10 safety at this point in his career, who was absolutely a top 5 safety in the first 2 years of his career. You still got Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns on the roster. You still got Dexter Lawrence. You went out there and spent the 3rd-round pick on Darius Alexander out of Toledo. You brought in Chauncey Golston from the Dallas Cowboys, who had 6.5 sacks a season ago. This team is better. There's no way around it. The New York Giants are a better team right now. Now, offensively, there's a lot to be desired there, right? Because we're bringing back the same exact offense that we had out there a year ago, except bringing in a guy like Cam Scatterbo to be like a extra weapon, a guy who can aid this running back by committee type of situation. But at the end of the day, this is the exact same offense we saw in 2024, minus Daniel Jones, which does mean a lot. And then you're bringing in Russell Wilson to supplement and bring some competency to the quarterback position. But, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean, the Giants got better, right? I don't think anybody would disagree that the New York Giants got better on paper, and I think that should show in the record column this year as well. Although last year I think the New York Giants being a 3-win team, I think that record really doesn't state who the team was. The 10-game losing streak that the New York Giants had from weeks 5 to weeks 15, absolutely unacceptable for one. But two, they could not get off the bench during that losing streak. We only had one receiving touchdown from our wide receiver core during that entire 10-game losing streak, and that came from Malik Neighbors. I do blame a lot of that on the quarterback, but I think a lot of people in our fan base are blaming all of the woes that the New York Giants had in 2024 on the quarterback. And y'all know, as somebody who was the most critical content creator there is, maybe outside of Tim from Online Big Blue, as far as it goes into speaking about Daniel Jones. I still can't sit up here and blame everything on Daniel Jones as far as the reasoning why the offense just didn't move a certain way. I got to give Brian Dable his fair share of the blame as well. His play calling was not up to par last season. It does look like Mike Kafka is going to be the play caller this year, so that should change some things for the New York Giants moving forward. But absolutely, the New York Giants became a much better team in 2025. And, the draft and the free agency moves are absolutely showing on paper. We just need them to go out there now and get the results. But personnel-wise, New York Giants are absolutely a much better team. I don't even think the Philadelphia Eagles got that much better. They actually lost a lot of talent on defense, but they're just that good. The Dallas Cowboys, they played we'll say, let me see, Dak Prescott played 7 games last season, I believe it was, 8 games last season. So you're looking at just about half of the season with Cooper Rush at the quarterback position for the Dallas Cowboys last year. That's absolutely going to help them out. It's offensively for the New York Giants where I have my questions. But, one of two things need to happen, or maybe both of these things need to happen. The Giants allowed way too many points last year. The Giants didn't score enough points last year, right? They were averaging 16.1 points per game. We need that number to go up. We need to get to that 20 points per game range, and then we need to allow a little bit less per game. I think the New York Giants were allowing around 24 points per game last season. So if you can plus or minus 3 on both sides of that, I think the New York Giants will be in a really good place. But shout out to my dog, Michael Knight, one time in the building. Door Gunner says, tight ends and wide receivers not having the chip to help tackles is going to make things much more explosive. That's true, because last year you saw that from your tight ends in Washington with Zach Ertz, and Zach Ertz still was able to really find his way into the end zone. He was maybe the best red zone threat in the entire NFC East last season. I want to say it was either 8. I think it was 8 touchdowns last year for Zach Ertz, and it was 8 of the 9 from the tight end unit. Absolutely a great year from him. Big shout out to Door Gunner for the $5 super chat, man. Definitely goes a long way, my dog. My dog Chris Peace is in the building one time. What's going on, Chris Peace? Coming in with the $5 super chat one time. He says, when Carter, Burns, Dex, and Kayvon line up on 3rd and 6+, how many false starts will Tunsil have? I'm not going to answer that just yet, because we're going to talk about a segment here in the Giant Overreaction that will speak to this. 3rd and 6 or more, let's call it 3rd and long, is going to be a pivotal down for the New York Giants in 2025. And we're going to talk about a little bit of data, and we're going to show you guys a little bit of all 22 before we get up out of here that will give you a little bit of pause on the 3rd and long situations for the New York Giants and how they should approach it from a personnel standpoint. But a big shout out to Chris Peace, man. Chris Peace blessed me with some tickets to the Commanders game tonight. I'm going to be making an appearance there in the 100s, checking them out against the Cincinnati Bengals tonight. Should be a real interesting matchup. All right, so save some of y'all questions for right after the Giant Overreactions that we do. We're going to be doing 2 of them. I'm going to briefly talk about the offensive line here. I do want to talk about Evan Neal and his performance against the Jets on Saturday as well. But feel free to repeat some of the questions that you might have. The chat is absolutely booming. We got about 200 people in here today, man. Salute to all of y'all again. If you are new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you're digging the vibes, we're going to be committed to giving y'all, let me see how I want to word this. It's going to be the realest. That's what I like to say at the beginning of a Giant Overreaction. We're going to be committed to giving y'all the most realist, honest Giants content this season. I pride myself on not giving fluff when it comes to New York Giants. I'm the more, I try to make people just think about what we're actually seeing out there, right? And I might give you a perspective from the other side of the grass. And that's something that I pride myself on here on the Giant Overreaction and on the Authentic and the Beard channel here. But let's talk about Evan Neal, and let's talk about these PFF grades that we saw from our offensive line. Jermaine Illuminor leading all offensive linemen for the New York Giants with a 76 grade. Aaron Stinney at 71.9. Austin Schlottman at 70.2. And all the other New York Giants offensive linemen were all under the 66 grade from PFF. JMS looking a lot better on this one. Joshua Zidu had a day. When I did the Evan Neal cut up that is live on our YouTube channel right now, Joshua Zidu absolutely stood out. He got a lot of reps at the left guard position, looked really good. Seems to be a guy that can be a serviceable depth piece for us moving forward. You also had a backup center, third-string center Brian Hudson with a 61.9. Van Roten seems to always be in this range of 49 to 59 as far as PFF grades go. Marcus Bowe with the 55.6, a bit of a regression from his game against the Buffalo Bills a week ago. James Hudson, the third, man, 52.7. That is looking like probably the worst offseason move of the year so far. You know, we're paying that guy $12 million on a 2-year contract. He's making just $1 million less as far as an average annual value than Jermaine Illuminor is making. And Hudson has not had a really good camp. He has struggled throughout both preseason games and has struggled throughout the practice portions for the New York Giants as well, and seems to be a bit of a nuisance and a bit of a headache. Seem to have a lot of beef with Kayvon Thibodeau, and others seem to always be getting into scuffles and whatnot. And then you see Evan Neal down there with the 47.6 grade. And like I said, I posted the compilation of all of his snaps to our YouTube page. You can check that out for yourself. But a lot of the comments are a mixed bag of opinions when it comes to Evan Neal. I do think that Evan Neal is a very tough evaluation. And I try to stay away from the offensive line stuff a lot. I like to leave that stuff for Bobby Skinner, who does a really good job of doing that, because if you did not play offensive lineman, or if you're not doing some serious studying of how offensive line truly works, then your assessment is going to be skewed. And I'm a guy that coming up, I played the skill positions. I played quarterback. I played wide receiver. I definitely didn't play no defense. I can remember my defensive backs coach on my high school team. Shout out to my dog, Mike Burnell. I remember him pulling me over to the side and saying, he's like, yo, we're not going to have you practice on defensive days. I'm going to just need you to just stay on my hip. You can be my wide receiver that runs a lot of skeleton routes for our defenders and whatnot. But I like to leave that stuff to the professionals. But for me, what I'm seeing from Evan Neal is definitely not good or great. And when you listen to the broadcast, there was definitely, a bit of just an overemphasis on Evan Neal and his play. And I feel like more wanting him to be great than rather him looking great. And on Twitter, I posted the compilation of all of his snaps, and on YouTube, and just got a mixed bag of reviews, from looking good, Neal, keep working, to I've seen enough, best of luck to you, number 73. Another Twitter user said, not bad, but doesn't seem comfortable. Somebody else said, why does the tape look better than the PFF grades? I can't agree with that one. Another person said, looks like he's kind of lost out there, to be honest. Another one said, send him to McDonald's where he belongs. And another person said, not nearly as good as the broadcast made it seem, a complete long shot to be the starting guard for the New York Giants. And I agree with that assessment as well. Now, Evan Neal's PFF grades overall, 47.6. The run blocking grade was 47.5. The pass blocking grade was 48.1. And the Giants were running a lot of up-tempo for the majority of Evan Neal's reps. He was in with Jaxson Dart for the most part. And you guys always know I say a decisive quarterback is an offensive lineman's best friend. And I think that was definitely, something that benefited Evan Neal in his performance against the Jets on Saturday. Neal was not good. I'm not saying Neal was bad, but Neal was not good. And you can go and look at the reps, on the channel, and you be the judge for yourself. But I do think that there are a lot of agendas, and a lot of people want Evan Neal to be better than actually waiting for Evan Neal to be better and saying, wow, he looks better. They just want to find a way to salvage a top 10 pick. And I get it. At times I can fall victim to that as well. But when you look at Joshua Zito, a guy who was drafted on day 3, he looked a lot better than Evan Neal did. And Bobby Skinner posted an Evan Neal breakdown. I recommend all you guys go over there and check that out. I haven't even watched it yet for myself, but a Twitter user chimed in on Twitter when he posted the link to it, and he said, his name was @JBroken. He said, Grok, can you watch this video and summarize it for me? And Bobby retweeted it and said, LOL, fuck this. And I do get that, because we're looking at AI starting to take some of the jobs. Rather than getting that view from a real person now, Bobby's got to get that view from Grok. I don't even know if that view is going to count. But this is what Grok, the Twitter AI, had to say about Bobby Skinner's breakdown on YouTube. Grok said, Evan Neal's guard debut showed mixed results. In pass pro, on 20 snaps, he used his size well on a few blocks, but was too passive, allowing defensive linemen to control him, beaten quickly on swipes and hesitations, no standout plays. In the run game, on 10 snaps, 2 of them were solid, but more issues like lacking explosion, poor finishes, and getting driven backwards. Overall, not disastrous, but doubts on starting viability at guard due to more negatives than positives. Now, I'm not somebody who's like anti-AI. I haven't seen the video yet. It seems like a pretty solid breakdown of what Evan Neal put out there on tape against the Jets on Saturday. Now, again, I just think that people are in love with the idea of Evan Neal being a good right guard, when in reality, he's just not that just yet. Every rep from the All-22 will pretty much show you the truth on that. So I recommend that y'all go check it out for yourselves and you be the judge. But for me, I'm not going to sit up here and coddle Evan Neal with hope. I think that that's what a lot of New York Giants fans did with Daniel Jones and with plenty of other players that we've seen throughout the past. And that's just not my vibe. So as far as Evan Neal, I don't think that he has shown us anything right now that, one, he should take Greg Van Roten's job at the right guard position, or two, he should be starting on this offensive line in any capacity. If anything, I'm looking at Joshua Ezeudu coming in and being the backup guard right now. And I know Ezeudu has had snaps at the tackle position as well, but I just look at Joshua Ezeudu as a much more serviceable option for the New York Giants going into 2025. When it happens, let it happen. That is how I look at it, but all in all, I think that the offensive line played pretty well against the Jets. There were a lot of clean pockets, but y'all know what it is, man. A decisive quarterback is going to make this offensive line look that much better throughout the entire season. And I think that the offensive line is not even going to be an issue for the New York Giants this year, barring some catastrophe with injuries, obviously with Andrew Thomas. But I also think that Jermaine Illuminor is just as important to this offensive line as Andrew Thomas is, because if we're struggling at that right tackle position, it's going to be a bit of a regression and going back to the vibes that we had throughout 2024 and 2023 when we saw Andrew Thomas dealing with injuries, and also when we saw Evan Neal at the right tackle position, even when Andrew Thomas was healthy. So something to keep your eyes on. Now, let's get off into these Giant overreactions. Let me swap this out right here. Again, man, big shout out to everybody that's in the building rocking out with us today, man. It definitely means a lot. Just you being here, your viewership, hitting that like button, all of that stuff goes a long way, but those things are things that I really don't like to pay attention to too much, to be honest. I enjoy having a very small portion of the internet called Authentic in the Beard over here with a community of people that really a lot of this community knows ball. And I consider them the people that are very dedicated to the New York Giants in all facets. And I just love having this community here be tight-knit, where I can focus on everyone in this community. I can see a name and know that name. And if you want to join this family, hit that follow button over here, man. But we are committed to bringing the highest level of content, and quality is what we are all about. In my performance days, I had my homie Ethan Spalding. He would always say this before we went out on stage: 2 or 2 million. And we pride ourselves in that over here. Whether it be 2 people in the chat, 200 people in the chat, 2,000 in the chat, 200,000, 2 million in the chat, we're still going to try to keep this bar very high over here on Authentic in the Beard. And we're going to continue to try to raise that bar week in and week out over here as well. And I think that's something that everybody should expect from the New York Giants as well as a team. Don't settle for just competency. Allow this team to grow and put them on a pedestal when it's necessary, but also keep that bar high for Brian Daboll and the rest of this coaching staff as well. But salute to everybody that's here rocking out with us today, man. It's definitely been a vibe, and I'm extremely happy to just be back up here talking New York Giants football. It's something that I missed over here on YouTube while I've been doing, while I've been extremely committed to giving this content to Bleacher Report as well. But look forward to a lot of content during the season. And most importantly, I look forward to getting the Beard back up here and talking with him and having our disputes and our debates and all of that as far as it goes with the Washington Commanders going up against the New York Giants within the NFC East this season. It should be a really good year. But big shout out to all y'all. Let me just make sure I got caught up on the super chats here, and we do have an extra one here. Big shout out to my dog Dean one time in the building with the $4.99 super chat. He says, I like what I'm seeing from the team right now. Hopefully we beat Washington to start the year. I don't want to rush Jaxson Dart out there. Let the meal fully cook. I agree with you on that, and I think that right now, as far as the quarterback position goes, there's no wrong answer except Tommy DeVito, if you ask me. I think that the Giants have 3 capable, viable starters on this roster right now with Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson, and Jaxson Dart. And I think that Jaxson Dart could go out there right now and start for the New York Giants week 1. And me personally, I would not have a problem with it because he seems to be settled in right now. The speed of the game is not bothering him. The presence that he has in the pocket to be able to manipulate it is literally like up there with some of the better quarterbacks in the league already. One could make the argument that he's going up against backups, second team, third team, fourth team type of guys. But at the end of the day, these are all NFL caliber players that ultimately will make a roster, most likely, most of these players that are out there. And when Jaxson Dart has been going up against the second team, he's looked really good. So I really don't think there's a wrong answer. If I have it my way, Russell Wilson's going to start week 1, and Russell Wilson is going to start week 1 of the playoffs as well. And that'll keep Jaxson Dart on the bench. that means that Russ Wilson is winning games. So shout out to Dean, man. Appreciate you supporting the channel. And I totally agree with this take. Like, let it develop. But at the same time, be conscious that if he is the best quarterback on the roster, decisions are going to have to be made. But big shout out my dog Dean one time. All right, so for those of y'all that don't know how the Giant Overreaction show truly works, we normally take the first hour, and look at that, we're literally 10 seconds to the hour. We usually take the first hour to break down the game from the previous week, and then we get off into statements that will either come from national media or come from social media, from whether it be fans or analysts or whoever, former players, and we place those statements on the screen, and we decide whether or not that statement from that particular person is an overreaction or not. Now, this is the way that it goes. If you think that the statement on the screen is a statement that is an overreaction and you don't agree with it, when you see that statement, put an O in the chat to represent that you are taking the over. Pun on over for overreaction. If you agree with the statement on the screen, then you can take the under and you can put a U in the chat to represent that you are taking the under and you agree with the statement on the chat. I know that these rules can sometimes be confusing for some of our first-time viewers, but put the U if you agree with this statement and put the O if you think it's an overreaction. If you need a little bit more time to think about your assessment on the statement on the screen, maybe it's something that you need a few weeks to see in the regular season, whatever it may be, then you can put a P in the chat to represent that you are taking the push and your stance is pretty much neutral at this particular point in time. So those are the rules. We got 2 Giant overreactions today, and feel free to place your statements in the chat as well. I'll try to go through a few of them during each overreaction. This will be about a good 30-minute segment, and we're going to have 2 of them today. One of them will be focused on the offense. One of them will be focused on the defense. I already see a couple of folks in the building. Shout out to Dre putting the U's and the O's already in the chat. Word is in the building. Big shout out my day one Word. He says he's been waiting for this. Appreciate you pulling up, rocking out with us. I see Victor Castro is in the building. OG Knockout is in the building. OG, hey, I got to highlight this one from OG Knockout real quick before we move on. OG Knockout hated Daniel Jones more than anybody that I know. He said Jaxson Dart shouldn't start until the end of the year or the beginning of next year. I'm glad we got him, but he's not ready yet. OG, I want to know what you think from what you're seeing that Jaxson Dart is not ready yet. Over a guy like Russell Wilson, I will disagree with your assessment there, but also I'm not mad at this assessment. At the end of the day, I think that if Russell Wilson starts every game for the New York Giants, that's a bonus for everybody out there. But shout out my dog, OG Knockout, man, one of our day ones, been supporting us for a long time. And absolutely, and y'all know I don't even use the word hater unless it is applicable. But in this situation, we won't use the word hater. We're going to say that OG Knockout was Daniel Jones' biggest doubter, we'll say. We'll say doubter here. But shout out my dog, man. I appreciate you being in the building. It's good to see you back over here rocking out with us. All right, let's get off into these first couple here, man. We want to start with the defense. We want to start with the offense. Let's go ahead and start with the defense and get off into this first Giant overreaction here. All right, now this one comes from my fellow New York Giants content creator. I highlighted this one on Bleacher Report. Figured it'd be a good one to highlight over here on YouTube as well. This comes from my dog, Dilla, and it is a little bit summarized on the screen, but this is what Dilla had to say on Twitter right after the game. He said, yup, just like I've been saying, Giants bring in a small package with Abdul Carter inside on 3rd and long. What happens? The offense runs right at him and converts. 250 pounds inside don't work. Y'all let me know if y'all think this is an overreaction by my dog, Dilla, or if you think that this has some validity to it. If you agree with the statement on the screen, go ahead and put a U in the chat. If you think that this is an overreaction, go ahead and put an O in the chat. And if you think you need to see a couple of more reps from Abdul Carter before you come to a determination that he can't play on the interior portion of this defensive line, go ahead and put a P in the chat to represent that you are taking the push. Now, I want to show you guys from the all 22 angles the play that Dilla is talking about. It was the first 3rd down for the Jets of the day, and it was 3rd and 8, I believe it was. This is the overreaction that I was talking about when Chris Peace came in with the super chat, that I said that this was the segment that'll explain a lot about the New York Giants in 3rd and long situations. Here's the play at hand here. We'll take a look at it. Abdul Carter lined up inside there, pretty much gets manhandled and allows the running back, Braylon Allen, to have a nice little hole there to pick up the third down conversion. I was surprised to see the Jets run the ball on 3rd and 8 here. In this sideline view, you'll get to see that there is a big lane there between Abdul Carter and the nose tackle on the play. So for me, I got to say that there is some validity to this of what Dilla is saying. And I do agree with him. This is something that we need to monitor here. Now, I'm not going to necessarily take the U on this one. I'm going to take the push on this one because I want to see some more reps against first-team offensive line for Abdul Carter before I come to a complete determination that we should not utilize him either at the 3 tech or at any part of the interior portion of this defensive line. Now, Abdul Carter also did get flattened out on a chip from the tight end on this same drive. And it was really a wake-up call for him, a wake-up moment in the NFL for sure. And, dating back to last week when Abdul Carter had a ton of success against the Buffalo Bills, I think that this was a great, let's get our feet back on the ground here type of moment for New York Giants fans. Abdul Carter should absolutely be a straight-up force for the New York Giants this year. But at the end of the day, I don't know if we necessarily have the next coming of a Lawrence Taylor here. And he does play much better in his natural position out there on the edge. Abdul Carter played 19 total snaps on the day. He ended the game with just 1 pressure, 1 quarterback hurry, and 1 assisted tackle. 5 snaps were on passing plays, and Carter had 3 pressures on 3 pass rush reps against the Buffalo Bills last week. All of them were lined up outside, though. Now, I'm not worried about the New York Giants pass rush. You can't forget that Dexter Lawrence was not out there as well. And he is I want to say the heartbeat of the New York Giants defense, but that's probably not the way to describe it. I would say that Dexter Lawrence is just the backbone of this defensive front, and we need him out there for sure. And I'm not necessarily worried, but it is something to monitor here that the Giants had 0 sacks against the Jets, and the Giants had 0 sacks against the Buffalo Bills a week ago. For this season to go the way that New York Giants fans, including myself, wanted to go, the pass rush has to get home this season. If we want to see our secondary, go out there and play to a higher level than what we saw in 2024 and see some of these free agent signings live up to their name and live up to the contract, it all starts with that pass rush getting home. I like Abdul off the edge more than I like him, playing interior defensive line. And that's why we drafted Darius Alexander. We need Darius Alexander to be a guy, a reliable guy that can play next to Dexter Lawrence throughout the entirety of this season and the entirety of his career. You also can't forget about Chauncey Golston, who a lot of people just looking at the title of his position being a defensive end think that he can't get kicked into the interior portion of this defensive line as well. But go back and look at Chauncey Golston when he played underneath Dan Quinn, and he was a hybrid defensive lineman. He played all over the place. He played 3 tech, he played edge, he played outside linebacker, and I think he's capable of getting the job done at the end of the day at all 3 of those positions for the New York Giants. I maybe would like to prefer to see Abdul Carter playing a little bit more off-ball linebacker than I would like to see him playing interior defensive line, but that's just the recency bias of what happened in the game against the Jets. But I also think that, as far as what Dilla said here, this is not an overreaction. This is actually a Giants fan and a content creator getting out there ahead of the rest of the people that are going to be judging Abdul Carter and just letting you know that, maybe a guy at 250 pounds is not going to be a key player or have a key role on the interior portion of this defensive line. And I think that there is a lot of validity to this statement here. So we shall see, how things pan out when we get to the season. And, once Abdul Carter gets, some more reps at the position, we'll see if he can possibly be a guy that can possibly, play the interior portion of the defensive line. But from what we saw, in this game, it definitely did not. It left a lot to be desired there from Abdul Carter. Let me see what the chat is talking about here, and then we'll keep it pushing to the next Giant overreaction. I'm just trying to scroll back and see. All right, we'll start from about right here. And I see Eli says one about Jaxson Dart. Even if Dart is ready, he should sit or sit as long as possible. I would be happy to not see him until next year or the last half of this year. For me, there's something that New York Giants fans don't know, right? And that is how ready Jaxson Dart truly is. Brian Dable and Mike Kafka have the best pulse on that. If they want to wheel him out there in week 1, I got no issues with it. Like this whole, sit him for every quarterback that sits and has success. There are 5 quarterbacks that started week 1 in their rookie year and had success. So I think it's a coin flip type of situation as far as, if we think or know if Jaxson Dart is ready. Let's see. Rob Travis said that DJ was a cancer. He absolutely was. El Scorcho agrees with the statement on the screen. Prince Sincere 1 says it's an overreaction, along with Dre. I believe that's Dre. There might be an I in there too. Also says it's an overreaction. Michael Knight is taking the under. He agrees with the statement on the screen. Shout out my dog, Deedon Shelton, one time in the building. He said it's an overreaction. Dex wasn't in the game. Makes a difference. I don't know about on that one rep, though, Deedon. It's a one-on-one rep, and he's getting manhandled there. But I don't think strength is an issue for Abdul Carter. It's just about when he's going up against some of the interior guys on the offensive line. But that is a good point to point out there that Dex wasn't in the game. Word says it's an overreaction. Mike Sullivan is taking the push, and this is where I'm at with it. I'm taking the push on it as well. I want to see more. Rob says it's an overreaction. Our safety duo are strong run defenders. The Cowboys have been doing this for years. The Cowboys were trash against the run last year. I think the Cowboys were the worst team against the run in the NFL last season. And a lot of that was because their interior defensive linemen, their draft picks that they have had in the recent history have not panned out, Mozzie Smith being one of them. So I don't want to model anything as far as run defense goes after the Dallas Cowboys. And also something to keep in mind here is that you don't want your safeties stepping up in the box making plays against the run. When that happens, you know that something is going wrong with your first level and your second level with the linebackers. If anything, you want Micah McFadden and Bobby Okereke making those plays. You don't want your third level making plays in the run. If they have to, they have to. But at the end of the day, I don't want to see Javon Holland and Tyler Nubin being the guys that are the reason why we're stopping the run. You're not going to see those guys at the line of scrimmage making plays, or more importantly, making TFL plays. So I can respect the overreaction, but the reasoning I don't agree with. OG Knockout agrees with the statement on the screen. Steven Arce, big shout out Steven Arce in the building. What's going on, my dog? He said he's taking the under. Kayvon weighs more. He should be in the interior 100%. Kayvon does weigh more, but he is a bit of a leaner type of body. I'd prefer neither one of them really being there right now. I think we have some guys that we're invested in that should be able to play that position as well. Roy Robertson Harris, I think, immediately should be the guy that's going to be next to Dexter Lawrence right now, and then hopefully Darius Alexander can pan out and be that other guy as well. And then maybe Chauncey Golston can be a bit of a rotational piece on the interior defensive line as well. Who else we got? We got Christopher Moody taking the under. Dominic's in the building. He's taking the over on this one. Chris P says it's an overreaction. Dexter Lawrence was not playing. Again, a one-on-one rep. I'll show it to you guys one more time before we get off of this particular topic. But, yeah, it was a one-on-one rep, so I don't know what Dexter Lawrence would, how he would help that situation, because if you paid attention to the way that the New York Giants rush defense worked last season, most offensive lines are double-teaming Dexter Lawrence. Chris Pease, you know about it. You were at the Washington game in week 2 as well as I was, sitting there scratching my head going, why is Brian Robinson putting up 140-plus yards on the New York Giants defense when we got Dexter Lawrence here? Well, it was because they were double-teaming Dexter Lawrence and literally running right down the A-gaps right on the side of Dexter Lawrence, which is why Joe Schoen placed an emphasis on drafting a 3-tech defensive tackle in the 3rd round in the 2025 NFL draft. So we need these guys to pan out, and not every draft pick is going to pan out, and we can't sit there and just blame Joe Schoen for, every draft pick not working out. If they all don't work out, okay, we got a problem here. But, at the end of the day, these players got to go out there, they got to develop, and then ultimately become guys that can contribute to the New York Giants' success. Let's see what else we got. Shout out Mr. Copate in the building one time. He says it's an overreaction. He do that all day with Dex in there, hit a bunch of walls. Yeah, I definitely think that's something to keep our eyes on. Gregory says he's taking the under on this one. Off Broadway's in the building. 718 says he's taking a push. Reps build experience. Give him more to build that up. Great way to describe that. I 100% agree with you on that. Word says he got welcomed to the NFL. It happens, but we better not see it happen often. That's a fact right there. Lou Mateo says he's taking the push as well. I gotta see what it looks like with Dexter in the middle. Absolutely, I agree with you on that. But you want to see guys win their one-on-one matchups. Victor Castro said, Micah, nah. I hate to say it, but I would keep DeVito over Jameis, not because he's better, but because he knows the offense and can run it immediately if something were to happen. I 1,000% disagree with this. Tommy DeVito is a terrible NFL quarterback, and I think that experiment should be over. I'd keep Jameis Winston on the roster along with Russell Wilson and Jaxson Dart, and I would actually bring in another practice squad quarterback that has more of a mobility skill set so that we can utilize that practice squad quarterback to be the guy that can replicate what we see from mobile quarterbacks, especially within the division. Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, those are two guys that utilize their legs extremely well within their respective offenses. And I think we need to bring in a guy like a Malik Cunningham at the quarterback position to maybe be that fourth quarterback that's on the practice squad that can, just emulate what a running dual threat quarterback looks like in the NFL. And that'll help us go a long way, I think, in preparation for our defense, once they get out there on Sundays. And when you say Micah Nah, I guess it's two different topics. Maybe he's talking about Micah McFadden. I like Micah McFadden as our secondary off-ball linebacker. And Jameis Winston could go out there and actually win us games. Tommy DeVito, not so much. Mr. Kopate says that he was containing the outside. It looks like contain is not necessarily a thing for interior defensive linemen. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. OG Knockout said he got pancaked as well. He absolutely did. Chris P said he's also a rookie. I'm not using that as an excuse. If you're going to be a starter, you're going to be a starter, which right now Abdul Carter has not started for the New York Giants defense in either one of these games, but he has came in early. But being a rookie, drafted that high, I expect you to come in and be a contributor immediately. Ben Ayers says it's an overreaction. One play is such an overreaction. Remember how much Jamar Chase dropped the football in preseason his rookie year? He was dominating the interior in camp so far. I remember how much Jamar Chase was dropping the ball in camp, and it showed up in the regular season as well. Jamar Chase was at the top of the league in drops. But look, if you're making big plays, I don't care about drops. Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson both had 7 drops on the season last year. If they were making more plays, I wouldn't care. But because they're not making as many plays, you can't drop the ball at that frequent of a rate. Looking at one play, I think you can overreact to one play, but you can't find a play where Abdul Carter is in the interior in this last game against the Jets and had a lot of success. Now, there were a couple of plays in the joint practices and in the previous game against the Buffalo Bills where it looked like he utilized a decent swim move, but it seems like Abdul Carter, when he's in the interior, as of right now from the limited reps that we have seen, when he wins, it's not with strength, it's with speed on the interior. And I'd like to reserve that a little bit more for the outside. He's just much better off the edge than he is in the interior. Chaz G said, yeah, he's too small. And I do think that plays a role. Being 250 pounds on the interior, what guys at 250 are having success on the interior in the NFL? There are a couple of guys that come to mind. In the draft, Aeneas Peebles was a guy that I wanted the New York Giants to draft, and he was a very undersized defensive tackle that I thought could play the 3-tech pretty well. There's also the veteran, I don't know why I can't remember his name right now, the veteran interior defensive lineman that played with the Atlanta Falcons for like 9 or 10 seasons, and I think he either just got traded or got scooped up in free agency by the Minnesota Vikings. I'm not going to remember his name right now, but there aren't that many guys that are that small that have a lot of success in the interior portion. Chris Moody says the play call was some shit too. Yeah, I didn't, if you're speaking from a Jets perspective, I thought that was an interesting play call. 3rd and 8 running the ball. You just rarely see that. And the New York Giants are probably thinking like, 3rd and long, just like Chris Peace was saying, in the super chat. 3rd and long, let's go out there and get our best pass rushers on the field, pin our ears back and try to get after the quarterback in what appears to be an obvious passing situation. And speaking to what DeIlla says in this post here, that if teams see Abdul Carter on the field on the interior portion on 3rd and long that's not an egregious long, they might try to capitalize on that and run right at him. Victor Castro says, authentic, show the play where Golston got demolished. I feel it was worse than what happened to Abdul. It's not worse in my opinion because on the play where Abdul got demolished, it was a crackback block, right? On the play where Abdul Carter got demolished, it's just not knowing your surroundings. Like when you line up right there, you got to know when you see that tight end in line that he's probably going to chip you. And it's a learning experience. I don't think we're going to see that happen again from Abdul Carter throughout the year because once it happens once, that's the teaching lesson right there, and it shouldn't have to happen again. Golston did get decleated on that play, and I saw a lot of people harping on that play. He also made some good plays in the game as well. But I think that they're both, plays where the New York Giants don't win on the rep. But at the end of the day, I think that the one with Abdul Carter, it's more of an obvious situation where when you have a tight end in line, hand in the dirt, you got to expect a chip block there. And honestly, it's why Kayvon Thibodeau didn't have a lot of success last year because a lot of the times he had the tight end lined up on his side. And Brian Burns as well. Brian Burns was, a guy who had to deal with tight ends chipping him as well. And then you're going to see, I don't even want to say casual fans, but we'll say it. You'll see casual fans say, oh, man, Kayvon Thibodeau's not getting after the quarterback. And a lot of it has to do with little minuscule details that are just like that. Welvin says it's an overreaction. He can play there situationally. Linebackers should be filling that gap anyway. I think that's part of it, but you just want to see him win with strength a little bit more. And I will show the play again so I can kind of assess it again myself as well. But I don't think that's an egregious approach, what you're saying there, Welvin. Big shout out to Welvin, man. Appreciate you being here in the building as well. Let's see. Stephen R. says that Bowen will get fired by week 8 if this is what he will be doing. I don't see any way that Bowen gets fired mid-season. Dean says it's a push for me. Just got to see more. I agree with you on that. Dominic Hickman said that left tackles never play inside. I'm not too sure what he's saying right there. This is Aiden. Aiden says, or maybe it's Aideanism. Aideanism says he need to get in that weight room, maybe start wrestling like Tibbs. Yeah, I mean, the weight room is a way, but I think you also want to have balance with what we brought him in for, right? Like, we brought in Abdul Carter to rush the passer. We want to see him help stopping the run, but also you put on a lot more weight. Maybe you lose some of that quick burst off the line. I don't think he's playing at too low of a weight or anything like that, but hitting the weight room can't hurt nobody, man. You know what I'm saying? You want to be you want to have the endurance. You want to be in shape. You want to, have the most strength you can possibly have out there, but do it without losing your speed asset as well. But that's a good point right there. Let's scroll down here. Where's Jay Gadsby? Jay Gadsby in the building. Jay Gadsby said Bowen will be your guy's downfall. Big shout out my dog, Jay Gadsby. Hey, Gadsby, you been paying attention to the running backs you put me on to, bro? Bashal Tootin looking real good out there. Brashard Smith looking all, looking like the part out there with the Chiefs, man. This is my dog right here from Bleacher Report, man. Jay Gadsby is absolutely a dude that knows ball. He is an egregious Shedeur Sanders supporter. I don't know if his fandom is still quite intact that the New York Giants did not draft Shedeur Sanders, but that's my dog, man. Jay Gadsby absolutely knows ball. Big salute to my dog in the building one time. Appreciate you pulling up. Chris P. says, don't worry. Christian Wilkins will be here in November when he's cleared medically. I saw someone else in the chat briefly earlier when I was scrolling saying, should we bring in Wilkins? I don't know if I want to allocate all that money to the defensive line. We got some ballers. We got some youth. I think we're good. I mean, having more players is good, but that's going to come with a healthy contract, man. That's going to come with a healthy contract. So I'm not too sure about that. Brick City said thoughts on Trace Ford. I think he played well. He absolutely did play well. When I saw the PFF grades, I was like, "Ooh, that's looking real nice out there, man." That's a guy to keep your eyes on as well. Ben Ayers said, "How much experience does Abdul even have playing inside?" Not a lot. From what I saw at Penn State, he played a lot of off-ball linebacker 2 years ago, and then he played off the edge a lot this past season. So, everybody was talking about this could be a guy that you could utilize all over the defense. And Micah Parsons is a guy that the Dallas Cowboys underneath Dan Quinn, they definitely utilized him on the interior portion of the defensive line. It's all about Shane Bowen understanding that it has to be a very predictable passing down on third down and long to be able to bring in Abdul Carter and, be that guy that can play on the interior portion of the line. So, I kind of put some of that on Shane Bowen for not recognizing 3rd and 8 is a down where the New York Jets would consider running their running back right at our defense when you bring in that lighter personnel. So definitely a good conversation. And, Deilla's a guy that talked about this with Kayvon Thibodeau being chipped by tight ends. And he also talked about this before it happened on his YouTube channel. I recommend you guys go check him out. It's Deilla. And you can put Giants behind that on YouTube and you'll find his channel. It's a very run and gun type of style of content that he does because he is a very busy person with his work and whatnot. But I always love his takes. He's somebody that, really put me on and put Joe Shane on my radar as far as a guy that might not have the draft process down pat just yet. And in the first 2 years, the day we hired Joe Shane, he put out a really great video assessing Joe Shane's tenure with the Buffalo Bills. So I recommend you all check him out. And I knew that this would be one of those topics that split the room, and those are the ones that we like to bring here to the table on the Giant Overreaction. So a lot of good stuff said by the chat. And I just think, this is one that we can take the push on. You want to see Abdul Carter be utilized as a chess piece in the New York Giants defense. At the end of the day, one rep is not enough to necessarily to write him off as far as being a guy that can play at the D tackle position, but it is something to keep your eyes on, and that's why I wanted to bring this one to y'all attention. Before we move on to the next Giant Overreaction, I'll show you guys the play in case anybody's just coming in or if you didn't see it earlier, but this is the play that we're talking about on 3rd and 8 with Abdul Carter against the Jets, where he was lined up on the inside of the defensive line and completely just gets pushed out of the way there. You know, and I don't know if I agree with the linebacker should have filled that hole there. I don't know about that. It does seem like, yeah, I guess you could say that. Abdul Carter does kind of play it outside a little bit, so I guess you could say that. I almost want to see it one more time here and just focus on the linebackers one more time. Yeah, because everybody's up at the line of scrimmage, which is kind of interesting there. Yeah, definitely something to keep your eyes on. And it is a one-on-one rep again, and you just see Abdul Carter just not winning that rep, but he definitely did try to get to the outside, so that is a good point about filling that gap, and hopefully that the linebacker could have came in and made the play. But nonetheless, it ends up resulting in a first down for the New York Jets and kept that drive alive. But Giants did a good job throughout playing bend, don't break, and even in those situations where the Jets were having some success, it for the most part did not end up in more points on the board for the Jets. So nonetheless, something to keep your eyes on, but it's not the end of the day for Abdul Carter. And this is another point that somebody made on Bleacher Report that I thought was a really good point. You want this to happen in the preseason so that we can iron out these deficiencies before we get to week 1. And by the time we get there, we're not figuring it out on the job, right? You want to be able to, have your feet set in stone and know what's going to happen when we get to the regular season. So definitely, again, another good one by the Illa. It's my second time bringing it up, and it's probably a giant overreaction that I'll revisit once we get to the regular season and see how Shane Bowen is utilizing Abdul Carter. But let's get off into this next giant overreaction. I told y'all we were going to have one for the defense and we were going to have one for the offense. Let's go ahead and talk about this one that's going to be for the offense. More quarterback-driven stuff here on the giant overreaction. All right, this one comes from my dog on Twitter, man. Big shout out to my dog, Cross420 one time, man. Another one that I truly respect his opinions on the New York Giants and just on football in general. And it is a little bit condensed on the graphic on the screen, but this is what Cross420 had to say. He said, "I'm a big believer in letting rookie quarterbacks sit and develop, but none of y'all can convince me that Russell Wilson is better than Jaxson Dart." Now, let me know if you think that this is an overreaction by putting an O in the chat if you don't agree with it. If you do agree with the statement on the screen, you can put a U in the chat to represent that you are taking the under. And if you want to wait to see these guys get on the field, especially Russell Wilson, who has had a bit of a quiet preseason and hasn't really played that many drives. But if you need a little bit more time to figure that out, you can put a P in the chat to represent that you are going to be taking the push. Now, I think that this is a very interesting topic because you're looking at like raw, untapped, young talent versus experience, right? Russell Wilson, a guy that's won a Super Bowl, plenty of Pro Bowls out there, right? We know the leadership capabilities from Russell Wilson, but also when you look at Jaxson Dart and you look at it from just a raw talent perspective, I mean, I think it's not even egregious to say it that right now from a raw talent perspective, Jaxson Dart is probably the quarterback that has the better skill set right now, especially when you add that mobility in the conversation. Now, Russell Wilson through 2 games is 10 of 14 for 136 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, which, take that with a grain of salt because it just happened to be a situation where he was not on the same page with Bo Collins. Looked like he was kind of trying to throw the ball maybe away or in a place where only his receiver could get it. At the end of the day, Bo Collins goes inside. Russell Wilson throws it outside, almost to the back pylon, ends up being an interception. So I don't really look at that interception. It doesn't hold a lot of weight for me. Now, Jaxson Dart through 2 games is 26 of 35 for 291 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, no interceptions, and 1 rushing touchdown. And he's looked really good, but it is the preseason. We got to tamper our expectations a little bit here. And also, Jaxson Dart is running with predominantly the 2s, 3s, and 4s when you look at Russell Wilson, who is strictly running with the 1s. So it is a little bit different here. You got a guy that's going up against mostly first-team defenses, minus a couple of players here and there, obviously. But you're looking at that versus what Jaxson Dart is doing going up against mostly 2s and 3s. Now, I do think that Jaxson Dart is ahead of schedule, like drastically ahead of schedule. Because I looked at Jaxson Dart as a quarterback that was a fringe first rounder, second round grade for me, a guy that I thought you were going to have to iron out some of the deficiencies in his game coming out of Ole Miss, out of that Lane Kiffin system, right? And it just seems that Brian Dable and Jaxson Dart are ahead of the schedule. But I also think that Russell Wilson is largely in part due to that reason. His leadership skills, his experience, having that guy in the same quarterback room as you when you come in as a rookie, showing you the ropes, right? And showing you your way around those ropes and how to navigate as a professional in the NFL. Without Russell Wilson on this roster, things might be a little bit different. It's not to say that Jameis Winston doesn't have a lot of those similar characteristics, but at the end of the day, I do think that Jaxson Dart being ahead of schedule is largely in part due to Russell Wilson being on the roster. Again, I think that both of these quarterbacks are ready to go. I think that Russell Wilson is ready to lead and ready to start week one. I think that Jaxson Dart is ready right now, although it's not to say that Jaxson Dart doesn't have any room for improvement. A quarterback, when he gets to the end of the season in week 18, should be much better than what we see in week one. That still does not deter me from saying that Jaxson Dart could go out there right now in week one and be the starter for the New York Giants. With Russell Wilson on the roster, it makes things that much more difficult. Russell Wilson is not a Marcus Mariota. Now, when the Washington Commanders drafted Jaden Daniels in the first round with the second overall selection in the 2024 NFL Draft, it was a no-brainer with Marcus Mariota as the backup quarterback to start their guy in Jaden Daniels. But when you look at the preparation, and I was a guy that got to see Jaden Daniels firsthand at training camp in his rookie season, he was ready to go. It's not to say that there weren't things that he couldn't improve on, but he was ready to go. Is there a drastic difference between where Jaden Daniels was as a rookie as to where Jaxson Dart is right now? In my opinion, absolutely not. I see the mobility from Jaxson Dart. Granted, it's not as high of a level that we saw from Jaden Daniels early on, because Jaden Daniels just has that much more speed. But Jaxson Dart is going to be a quarterback that is going to be able to extend plays and be able to convert on third and medium with his legs. And that was something that Jaden Daniels did extremely well in his rookie season. Now, again, I don't think that we have to stick to the script and have just one stance on this. I think Jaxson Dart is ready. I think that Russell Wilson is ready. I think that Jameis Winston is ready. I would have no problem if two of the three were not on the roster and we had to roll with one of them as the starter in week one. It could be any one of the three, and I would be okay with it. So to speak to the point here that Cross is making, I don't think that this is an overreaction. Like, I'm gonna absolutely take the under on this, and if I was in the chat, I'd be putting a U in the chat. I do think that Jaxson Dart is the better quarterback right now, but that doesn't mean that he is going to be able to go out there and give us the better results. I think that the experience from Russell Wilson right now, and being a guy that at this point in his career at the age of 36, he can still go out there and throw it with the best of them. The big play to Bo Collins in the game against the Jets on Saturday, Russell Wilson threw the ball air yards, 55 yards down the field, and he didn't even get to set his feet all the way. Russell Wilson can still throw it with the best of them. I think Jaxson Dart can still do that as well, but Jaxson Dart gives you that added mobility characteristic that Russell Wilson doesn't. I can't say that Russell Wilson doesn't have. I just can say that it's not as a highly touted skill set like it is with Jaxson Dart. Because Russell Wilson's going to surprise people with his mobility and his ability to buy time and extend plays. I think he's going to surprise a lot of New York Giants fans this year. But at the end of the day, when looking at this statement on the screen, I'm going to go ahead and take the under on this one. I do think that Jaxson Dart is the better quarterback right now. But will he give us the better results right now? I don't think so. And I love that Brian Dable is continuously saying that we have a plan and we're sticking to the plan. I like that plan. And if that plan is going to be to sit Jaxson Dart until he's ready, I'm cool with that. Let's see what the chat is saying here. I'm going to scroll back just a little bit. I see the beard is in the building. What's going on, man? Hope all is well with you, brother. All right, let's see. Where do these statements start to begin? Okay, we'll start about right here. Evan says that's a crazy take. I don't really think it's that crazy of a take. It's debatable, but I don't think it's that crazy of a take. Let's see what else we got. Michael Knight says he's taking a push. A lesson learned says it's an overreaction, along with Jameson. J-Mo Taylor is in the building one time. Samuel 30 says it's an overreaction, along with Victor Castro as well. Stephen R says he's taking the push. The chat jumped on me. He said Dart should only play after the bye. I agree with you on that. Yeah, after our bye is late in the season too. You know, the situation that I'm having difficulty with is if Russell Wilson deals with any injuries early on, like let's say like week 3, do you go to Jameis Winston or do you go to Jaxson Dart? That's the most difficult thing for me, because for people that want the development and the maturation of Jaxson Dart to be a slow, steady process and not play until like after the bye, like Stephen Arce is saying here, what if Russell Wilson goes hurt? Do you view Jaxson Dart as the quarterback too? You know, I think if you have a plan and it's to not play Jaxson Dart, then you move to Jameis Winston. If Russell Wilson ends up dealing with any kind of minuscule injuries. But it's a tough situation to be in, but it's not a bad situation, I think, right now. Kareem Yee says it's an overreaction. Mr. Kopate says he's taking a push. It's a rookie. Rookies have a lot of success, and when you look at the data, most first-round rookies are slated to play within 3 weeks. That's the average over the last, 25 years. I saw Chase Daniel talking about it. And most rookie quarterbacks are going to play in their first year. I mean, that's just what it is. We even saw Michael Penix Jr., who was in a very similar situation with Kirk Cousins being the veteran over there, that by the end of the year, the Falcons were like, listen, Michael Penix Jr. is our quarterback moving forward. And the $200 million that Kirk Cousins got going over there did not stop them from making that play. So it is a very it's a difficult situation, as I said, but it's not a bad situation. Chris P says, Cross is my dog, but I'm going to take a push. But at the same time, go ahead and play Dart. Yeah, I mean, when you look at it from a skill set perspective, Jaxson Dart does everything that Russell Wilson can do right now, maybe better. He throws across the middle better. The deep ball obviously has more velocity on it. He's probably got more arm strength than Russell Wilson. He's more mobile than Russell Wilson. It's a small sample size, but seems to have, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say equal pocket presence as Russell Wilson does right now. We'll see. You know, Russell Wilson does some things well. And for those of y'all that want to see how Russell Wilson has performed over the last 2 seasons, I've got compilations on the channel of all of his scoring drives over the past 2 years. The last season with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the season before that with the Denver Broncos. Check it out. Russell Wilson has a tendency to check down a ton. He has led the NFL in check down rate over the last 2 seasons. So something to think about. Kevin the PRF says, super O. I disagree with that to the fullest. Prince says it's a push. El Scorcho says it's a push. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets says it's an overreaction. Let some games play out. Russ has the experience, so the nod goes to Russ. Natural. Dart's ceiling is higher because he's the rookie. You know what's funny about this comment here that made me think about this, no Mets, no Nets, no Jets, is look at Russell Wilson as a rookie when he was with the Seattle Seahawks and they paid Matt Flynn to come in there. There was a decision that had to be made, right? And that was Pete Carroll at the time who had to make the decision that, wow, my rookie who we drafted on day 3 is better than the guy who was the experienced guy that we paid all the money to. Russell Wilson got paid $10 million as the floor of this contract. And with incentives, this contract can get up to $21 million. So it's not like it's a lot of money. Think back to when the Washington Commanders paid Ryan Fitzpatrick $10 million to come in that year, and he ended up getting hurt, I want to say like on the first drive. The $10 million really ain't that much. So for me, I just can't agree that this statement is an overreaction. I can agree with the push, like Gregory is saying here. I just can't agree it's an overreaction. Deaton says it's an overreaction as well, not big enough of a difference yet in their play, not worth rushing it. And I also think that a lot of people that might think this is an overreaction quite possibly didn't have access to Jaxson Dart's college games. Because even in college, he flashed a lot of what we're seeing in the NFL. And this year was the first year where, for me, evaluating and assessing quarterbacks entering the draft, the speed of the game, when I saw them get in an NFL game, there was no surprises for me. Like I said earlier in the stream, Dylan Gabriel looked like exactly what I thought he was going to be. Shedeur Sanders looked like exactly what I thought he was going to be. A guy that can get rid of the ball fairly fast, but I knew that from a mobility standpoint, he was going to have some troubles, and we saw some of that in that game. Tyler Shuck, a lot of people are looking at Tyler Shuck going, oh, man, this guy's the next coming of Daniel Jones. He's a terrible quarterback. I even saw What's my dog? Trying to think of my dog from Chat Sports with the Giants. I don't know why his name is escaping me right now. Something with an M. I can't remember his name right now. But he was saying, like, Tyler Shuck stinks and showed the one highlight. And I'm like, but what about the rest of his play? When you look at Tyler Shuck in the first preseason game, that dude was dealing before he threw that interception. And then he came back off the interception and threw a 60-yard bomb for a touchdown. All these quarterbacks are faring well. And a lot of people deem this quarterback class as one of the worst quarterback classes, in the recent history. But I always disagreed with that. And a lot of these guys may not be that first-round type of talent that we're seeing from a Cam Ward, but a lot of these guys are going to have some success in the NFL, whether it be as a backup or as a starter. And again, this is the first year where it really translated for me from my evaluation process, and I think that had a lot to do with getting my hands on a lot of all 22. Let me see. Jetpack Jeff is in the building. He said, oh, my God, big-time overreaction. Max Webster said slight overreaction. Like, those two statements right there, right? I don't know what's happening as far as the landscape of journalism and media right now. I don't know if this is a young boy thing. Like a lot of my young boys like to say, like, by far, it's not even close when it is. I don't know if I'm just getting too old. I don't know what's going on, but like, to me, this statement is not that egregious of an overreaction. Like, you look at it from a skill set standpoint, there aren't things that what does Russell Wilson do better than Jaxson Dart does? When you look at it from a skill set standpoint, what does he do better? I don't know. Maybe he's a little bit more decisive. Maybe. Like, I don't know, man. Like, it just seems to be the more and more that I see people's takes and like their reactions to takes, from social media. It's always got to be like way over top or way in the other direction. I don't know. Maybe that's just the way I'm seeing it. But I do agree with Max Webster a little bit more here. Slight overreaction. Jaxson may be a more talented player. You better start spelling Jaxson right, though. Don't, spell that the right way. We want the X's in there. He said, Russ is better for the offense as it stands today. And that's the part that I really don't know. I don't know. I mean, I like what I'm seeing from Jaxson Dart right now. I think it could be a wash, which is why I would take the push on this statement on the screen here. Welvin says it's an overreaction. A lot of his completions are screens, and his passing touchdown was completely schemed open with the fake toss. Let him sit a year. What about the touchdown in the game before to Lil Jordan Humphrey on a beautiful fade route where he didn't even have to look the safety off? That was DeMar Hamlin at the safety position. He just beat him there with arm strength. And as far as a lot of his completions being screens, six of his attempts in the two preseason games are screens. That's 6 out of 25. I don't think that's an egregious number, for me at least right now. The Beard said, sorry I'm late. The Beard is in the building, excited for the season, even more excited for week 1 Commanders versus the Giants. Let's go. Absolutely, man. It's going to be a good one. Oh, when you said Max Webster was talking about Russell's brain. Okay, I got you on that. Word says it's an overreaction. I like the way he spelled Russell here, too, like tussle. I like that. He said Russell Wilson should absolutely start, no question, although what if Dable does what he did with Dart in the regular season where he put him in for a snap or two to get the offense moving? I don't think he put him in to get the offense moving. And listen, if people are experimenting with trying to bring in Jaxson Dart on like running packages or something like that, that's not what Word is saying here, but I've heard people saying that. I'm absolutely against that. If Jaxson Dart is the better quarterback, start him. I don't think there's much to it, right? If he's showing you week in and week out in practice, in training camp, in preseason games that he's better, we get to the year and maybe Russell Wilson starts struggling. That leash needs to be short. Play the best players is how I view it. But at the end of the day, I don't look at it as Russell Wilson should absolutely start. I don't look at it as that. But I do think that Russell Wilson is ready to start right now. And I'll double down and say that Jaxson Dart is also ready to start right now as well. Now, let's see what else we got. Kevin the PRF said it's okay that both of y'all are late. We ain't tripping off y'all Commanders fans, bro. Y'all can be late. Y'all don't matter right now, all right? This is a New York Giants podcast. No, I'm just playing with y'all, but y'all know what it is. Stephen R. said Winston should start. I sense a little bit of sarcasm there on that one. Christopher Moody says, Dart got that dog in him. Knew he'd be solid. Me too, bro. Like, I don't know what is going on in the evaluation of quarterbacks in this day and age, right? I don't know if people are just not looking at it. I don't know if people are just relying on the Mel Kipers of the world to tell them who the best quarterbacks are. Maybe that is the case. I don't know. But for me, I like to just watch them play. And I couldn't even fathom how people thought that Shedeur Sanders was better than Jaxson Dart, let alone the people that had Shedeur Sanders as QB1 over Cam Ward. I need to know what you're smoking. I really need to know what you were smoking and what you were seeing when you were smoking whatever you were smoking. There's no way it was 420 vibes like my dog Crosshair. There's no way. It had to be some other harder drug for anybody that thought that Shedeur Sanders was the better prospect than Cam Ward. I get it. If you wanted to say over Jaxson Dart, that was a fairly close evaluation. I thought that Jaxson Dart's mobility put him over the top over Shedeur Sanders. But the people that were saying that Shedeur Sanders was QB1 over Cam Ward, you're smoking something synthetic, straight up and down. I got to keep it real with you. And quite frankly, I don't rely on those people for quarterback assessment no more. Like, you can get a quarterback wrong. I get it. But when you are constantly getting quarterbacks wrong, you can't tell me that Jaden Daniels wasn't a guy and then turn around and tell me that Shedeur Sanders is QB1 in this draft. I'm starting to be like, okay, the track record is starting to look a little bit scary here. So, do the work yourself. And I try to make that work easier for you guys. I try to cut up those compilations during the year. And for Jaxson Dart, it started all the way back in week 1, I believe it was, of the 2024 season against Furman when I posted the quarterback compilation where he absolutely went ape against them. I think he had 4 touchdowns in that game. And by the second half, he was sitting on the bench, chilling, icing up his knees, right? People said, oh, but that's going up against Furman. When you're evaluating a quarterback, I encourage you to not look at the results. Look at the reps, right? Josh Allen was a quarterback that was drafted, and the game that he was drafted in the first round, and the game where Joe Shane and Brandon Beane deemed that we're drafting that kid was a game where he threw 3 interceptions in it. Look at the reps, man. Look at the footwork. Look at the mechanics. Look at the situational, approach to the game. What does he do when he's under duress? What does he do when he's under pressure? How is he pushing the ball down the field? How many of his throws are on the intermediate level or above? Those are the things that I encourage people to do or to look at when they are evaluating a quarterback. Don't just look at the stats. When you look at Shedeur Sanders' stats, you would think that he was the best quarterback. You had people saying Shedeur Sanders is the most accurate quarterback in collegiate history because he had the highest completion percentage of any quarterback in collegiate history. That's a great stat to have, but then you got to look beneath the surface. There's context behind that. When you see a quarterback throwing 75% of his throws 9 yards or less, and you're seeing 30% of the throws at the line of scrimmage, you have to factor that in. Or I encourage you to factor that in. So, that's how I view the quarterback position, but to each his own. But listen, when I start to see these people that were supporting Daniel Jones, and then they come out and they say, oh, Shedeur Sanders is QB1, and then they're telling you that guys like Jaden Daniels are going to get killed in the NFL, or they're saying these guys don't know how to slide and all this nonsense stuff that really has nothing to do with playing quarterback in the NFL, I got to take their opinion now with a grain of salt. That's just how I view it. Chris Moody said that Jameis had the best throw of the night. To me, that game, that was a great throw to Dylan Cambray on the outside. I mean, and the way he avoided pressure, man, and the tight window. And the thing about that throw, I agree with you, Chris, that was the best throw of the night because he's rolling to his right. Cambray is running his route down the right sideline. So you got to think about it, like from the quarterback position here and the wide receiver being, outside the hash on this side of him. When Jameis starts to roll this way, now he's getting closer to him. And that line that you have to throw the ball in an accurate window, it's the plane is that much more thinner. And that was absolutely a great throw by Jameis Winston. I loved it. It was a fantastic throw, and I do agree with you. It was the best throw of the night. OG Knockout said he's taking the push on this one. Victor Castro said, what about Chapman at fullback? He looked solid out there. I could imagine him blocking for Scat and Tracy. Yeah, I'm cool with bringing in a lineman on goal line situations. They said that Chapman was like breaking his helmet every time he lined up at fullback. I guess, the impact from the collisions that he's creating. But, yeah, definitely tough. Brick City 101 said that Jaden Daniels was a Heisman Trophy winner, though. Yeah, I mean, that's true. He played great at LSU that final season, and he showed you that he was a dual threat and also a guy that could push the ball down the field, very well-rounded quarterback. But I don't think that him winning the Heisman is the reason why Cliff Kingsbury and Dan Quinn were like, you know what, we got to start you because you won the Heisman. Like that, I just think that that's kind of foolish. Like we saw Caleb Williams win the Heisman as well, and when he got into the league, he looked like he was struggling and he wasn't ready at the quarterback position. you have to assess it in the practice, which is why I trust the coaches, a vantage point over any fans, because they're seeing these guys day in and day out and they know what they're capable of. And more importantly, they know their own offense. The average fan just judges the game by like, look, he's open, right? But like, we don't know the scheme. We don't know the progression. We don't know the concept. How can we judge what the quarterback is supposed to do? Which is why I even take my own quarterback evaluations with a grain of salt, because I don't know the concept. I don't know the plays unless I see a concept that I'm familiar with. Like if I see, a quarterback running a flood concept to the right, okay, I understand that we have 3 levels to throw the ball. Or if we see a quarterback running like a Haas concept or something like that, where you got, 2 hitches on the outside and then the 2 seams on the inside. Okay, I know the concept, but for the most part, I don't know the details of Brian Daboll's offense to the T like he knows, which is also why when I hear fans say, oh, Brian Daboll's scheme sucks, well, break it down for me then. If you think that his scheme sucks, then break it down for me and tell me what I don't know, because at the end of the day, I'm sure there are people out there, former players, former coaches, guys that are close to the game, that do understand what Brian Daboll is doing from an offensive schematic standpoint. But for the average fan, you're really just talking shit when you say Brian Daboll's scheme is trash or whatever you want to call Brian Daboll. You're really just speaking on the results of what you see. And I get that too at the end of the day, but all these opinions got to come with a grain of salt. Mike Sullivan is in the building. He said he's taking the push. Need more time to see how Wilson operates the offense in the regular season. I like that, because I do want to see how Russell Wilson can operate this offense with Malik Neighbors, a guy that we know is going to draw a ton of attention, and then see how he can upgrade the play from guys like Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson, guys who have really struggled throughout the Daniel Jones tenure, outside of Darius Slayton's rookie season with Daniel Jones, where he had 8 touchdowns. So I do agree with that assessment right there. Shout out to That reminds me of the Juvenile record right there. He's taking the under. He said, Russ gives us a better floor, but Dart has a higher ceiling. Great way to break that down. I love that right there. Let's see. Rafael Colon is in the building. I think that's my dog from Twitter, man. Rafael used to join a lot of the Twitter spaces and whatnot. Very passionate Giants fan, man. I always respect his perspective. And he says, depends on what our record is as far as Jaxson Dart playing. And I do agree with that. Like, you got to give Russell Wilson the opportunity. You brought him in to be the starter. And listen, I honestly think that there is some kind of stipulation in Russell Wilson's contract that he has to be the week 1 starter. And I think that's why Russell Wilson was not a New York Giant in 2024 as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Russell Wilson can do out there week 1. I think he's capable, and we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. That leash doesn't need to be that long, though. Shout out to Jim Glathar, I'm going to say. I'm probably enunciating that wrong. He said, play Jameis. I like the idea of sitting Jaxson for year 1, but if he has to play, he has to play. I disagree with playing Jameis week 1, but I'm not mad at this take. Like I said, all 3 of these quarterbacks, if fans want to support one or the other as the week 1 starter, that's just preference at the end of the day. I think that they're all capable of going out there and being a starter for sure. We'll post this one for the chat here. Stephen R. says, at chat, what y'all think about every time Carter gets a sack, the Giants should play Darth Vader breathing sound effect at home games in the stadium speakers? I kind of like that. I know a lot of people have been giving pushback to Abdul Carter wearing that number 51, and I'm working on a video of why I think that number 51 is actually fire. We're gonna talk about that for sure in a couple of weeks here. Brick City 101 says it's an overreaction. If Aaron Jordan and Hurts can wait, so can Dart. I guess he's talking about. So he's saying if Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love, and Jalen Hurts can wait, so can Dart. I don't like comparing it to Jalen Hurts as much. Jalen Hurts had a lot of mechanics issues in his rookie season, and both upper body and lower body, just the footwork and just the throwing motion. I think Jalen Hurts actually was just not ready, and they still had a young guy that they were invested in who had got a big contract. You could look at that as the same reason why Daniel Jones was the starter last year, was because they paid him. Otherwise, Drew Lock was the better quarterback on the roster. And the year before, Tyrod Taylor was absolutely the better quarterback on the roster. But I do think that with the Aaron Rodgers situation, there's a lot of validity to that. And for Jordan Love, I think a lot of it was circumstantial, but they did have the cojones to go out there and draft him in the first round right after they paid Aaron Rodgers
I want to say they paid him $200 million as well. I think he either got $200 million for 3 years or for 4 years. I can't remember off the top. But they had him wait because Aaron Rodgers was still playing at a high level, and Aaron Rodgers is a, Hall of Fame type of quarterback. So that circumstance is a little bit closer to the New York Giants situation here, because Russell Wilson is absolutely a fringe Hall of Famer as well. It's late in his career, later than it was for Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers put up 2 MVPs in that stint of 4 seasons where Jordan Love was sitting on the bench too. So, I mean, that would have been very difficult to put Aaron Rodgers on the bench. I thought it was egregious that they shipped him off to the Jets, even when they did. And I thought it kind of was a mistake to go out there and draft Jordan Love when they did. They should have maybe went out there and drafted some weapons for Aaron Rodgers, but it worked out for him. And Jordan Love is absolutely a solid quarterback. Who's to say if he could have started week 1 in his rookie year or not? We'll never know. But the process that the Green Bay Packers put him through, it absolutely worked out for them so far. Deaton Shelton says that Dart is QB2 for sure. He played after Russ in both games. That's true. I don't know if that's necessarily because he's a rookie. He has been getting more snaps with the 2s in training camp as well, too. So it does look like he is QB2, but it wouldn't surprise me if an injury happened early on in the year to Russell Wilson, if Brian Daboll would go to the more experienced quarterback in that particular moment. But we'll see. Hopefully, we don't even have to think about that. Shout out Arturo Perez. He said, Authentic, do you think Daboll will continue to coach in 2026? Right now, and I feel extremely confident about this, you can absolutely book it. Daboll and Joe Schoen will be here at the beginning of 2026. I don't think that John Mara would have allowed them to draft a quarterback that was Brian Daboll's guy. We saw Joe Schoen come out after the draft and absolutely confirm that as well. Why would you allow your head coach to draft his guy and then not allow him to even get the necessary time to develop his guy or even see that quarterback on the field with that particular coach? Because there is a scenario where Jaxson Dart doesn't really play any meaningful snaps this year. And in that case, we'll have to see him with Brian Daboll in 2026. So I'm saying it now. You can stamp it. You can book it. Authentic told you. Brian Daboll, barring a straight-up catastrophe or any type of behavioral issues, I think he's going to be the coach here and through at least 2026, the beginning of the season. Let's see what else we got here. A couple more, and then we'll get y'all up out of here. Marshall is the guy I was talking about from Chat Sports. I was going to say Mason. It's Marshall. My bad. Marshall Green. Yeah, and I like the work that Marshall does over there, but I thought that one was just like, just trying to get a little bit too many, want that clickbait type of vibe. Like, oh, look at Tyler Shuck tripping over his own feet. Like, all in all, the dude played well. And at the time, that was his first incompletion in the game. He was 7 of 8 at that particular moment in time in the game. I think Tyler Shuck can have success in his league, and I wouldn't have wanted to draft him because the boneheaded moments definitely reminded me, of Daniel Jones for sure. And I just didn't want to deal with that particular style at the quarterback position again. Let's see. Stephen R. said, definitely getting old. Yeah, I mean, I'm 42 years old, but damn, like these kids who be like, Joe Burrow's better than Josh Allen, and it's not even close. Like, what the fuck are we talking about? Like, these young and there's been a shift in society, at least from my perspective on the culture that I'm in, right? Back in the day, OGs spoke and the youngins would go out there and get the game from the OGs, and we respected that. Now it's like the youngins don't respect what the OGs telling them. I can look at it as like RTDB is one of those things. Like all the old heads are like, man, running backs are important, run the ball. And these young dudes are like, don't pay running backs. Like running backs don't matter anymore in the NFL. And then you go look at the top 10 rushers in the NFL, and 9 of the 10, their teams are in the playoffs. So for me, it's just like, I can understand certain takes and you want to go a certain direction, but it's just how egregious these young boys are. Like, I just don't get that. Like, it's like they see one play and they go, oh, this guy stinks, and if it's not their guy, they're going to support it and create an agenda and a narrative. But I'm always tell y'all straight up what I think, right? But I'll never have a narrative. And if I do have any type of agenda, I never got narratives. That's one thing. But if I have an agenda, I'm going to tell you I have an agenda. I talked about this on Bleacher Report yesterday. I will tell you, like, look, this is my agenda. I want Jalen Hyatt to turn into a wide receiver 1. I want Deonte Banks to be CB2. It's my agenda, right? But at the end of the day, I'm not trying to create no narratives or anything like that. Like, I don't even have a large enough platform to create a narrative. Let's be real here. But shout out my dog, Stephen Ars. He knows I'm getting up there. Unk is definitely getting up there. I'm almost leaving the Unk status. I saw some piece of content the other day where they were breaking down, like, the different gaps. Like, what's a YN? What's a Unk? What's a OG? Like, I'm definitely leaving Unk territory right now. I mean, 42, I think once I get to that, halfway mark through the decade, I might be in the triple OG status here, man. I've been on YouTube now going on a decade almost, so we definitely getting up there. But shout out my dog one time. Jim says, maybe an overreaction. I like where the Giants are, particularly at quarterback. The Jets are considering signing Nathan Peterman. Need I say more? Yeah. Nathan Peterman had one of the worst debuts at the quarterback position I've ever seen in my entire life. So, yeah, the Jets are in struggle mode. But I will say this, the kid Martinez, Adrian, I believe it was, Adrian Martinez, the backup quarterback, I think there's a little bit there, man. That kid definitely playing some decent football. He made some good throws, ran the 2-minute drill real nice before the half. It didn't result in a touchdown for the Jets, but I like what I saw from him there. And then Tyrod Taylor getting hurt this year, that definitely going to hurt them. But, again, I'm not going to overreact to the performance by Justin Fields. He only had 4 attempts on the day. It didn't look great, but I'm not going to overreact to it. Let's see. Kevin the PRF says, quote, unquote, he's just as decisive. Verse who? You got to have a regular season resume before comparing Dart to any NFL vet. No, you don't. Let me tell you. This is exact, and I'm going to use your team as an example right now. When I told people that Jaden Daniels was the guy and the regret that we have as New York Giants fans by not being able to draft him because of those late season wins before that draft in 2024, Giants fans were telling me this same shit you're telling me right here. Oh, let's wait to see him play a game and all of this stuff. Y'all got to understand, I'm tapped in on the tape, man. Like, I don't know about you, Kevin, but I spend a lot of time watching tape, looking at quarterbacks. He's just as decisive. And he has an extra capability to be able to run the ball, even if his decisiveness is not matching up to Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, a lot of the content creators and a lot of the analysts out there, Brian Baldinger being one of them, will tell you that Russell Wilson is not a decisive quarterback. But when I watch the tape, I see a little bit of different there. Russell Wilson has a little bit of a tendency to hold on to the ball, but go look at his sack numbers over the last couple of years. He is a guy that when he plays a full season will get sacked around that 40 to 55 range. So there are times where Russell Wilson is going to hold on to the ball to not make an egregious mistake down the field. But again, your fan base should know this with Jaden Daniels. When I looked at Jaden Daniels at LSU and watched the straight up, I'm talking about, show that he was putting on tape, especially when it came to the deep shots down the field on the fade ball from the slot at LSU, but he did that from the X in the NFL. There's no doubt in my mind that these guys are going to be able to come into the NFL and be able to have success doing it. So for me personally, I don't need to see a game to tell you that Jaxson Dart is decisive right now. I don't need to see him play a game against the NFL starters to tell you he's decisive. Timing and rhythm really have nothing to do with the defenders that are in your face. I could see Jaxson Dart going up against air and understand that he is decisive. It's about how you play within the structure and the rhythm of the offense. And Jaxson Dart is a guy that takes the 3-step drop, hits the back foot, the ball is gone. 5-step drop, hits the back foot, the ball is gone. If his read is not there, he is a guy that can go through his reads. And a lot of people are calling Jaxson Dart a one-read quarterback at Ole Miss underneath Lane Kiffin, which is absolute bullshit. Like, I don't know why people think that Lane Kiffin is running some high school offense over there where it's so friendly to the quarterback that the quarterback doesn't have to go out there and make reads. Yes, Jaxson Dart made second reads and third reads at Ole Miss. Did he take the first read a lot? Yeah, because his first read was open. That's what quarterbacks should do. But for me, seeing what Jaxson Dart has done in college, seeing the way that it translated over into the preseason, there's no question for me about how decisive he is at the quarterback position at all. Shout out my dog, Jetpack Jeff. He said, was good, authentic. Appreciate you being here in the building. Prime Ape is in the building. He said he put him in on a 3rd and 7, right? It was 3rd and 8. He says, I think he wanted to put Dart under pressure and see. Oh, he's talking about the other one. Okay, yeah. That's what I've been hearing from the beat reporters as well, Prime Ape, is that he just wanted to test Dart to see, put him in a real game scenario where it's going to be like, hey, you got to get in the game right now. And Jaxson Dart went out there and handled business. You got to let us see that. Let's see what else we got. OG Knockout said, we can't disrespect Russell Wilson just because we have a young gun. I don't think I'm not tapped into everything that's happening in the chat right now. But for me, Russell Wilson is a very capable quarterback. If anything, I was going to say I'm wearing the pom-poms, but I'm not wearing the pom-poms. I'm never wearing the fucking pom-poms. I'm not a mascot or a cheerleader. But I am a part of the I'm supporting Russell Wilson in a major way. I think Russell Wilson can come out here with the New York Giants and really surprise and have a better year than we've seen in the last 3 seasons with Pittsburgh and with the Denver Broncos. Nova Nebula said, speak on it, Thenic, LOL. You already know. We're going to keep it funky up here all day long. Let's see. Stephen R. said, I don't know. I don't like the back and forth between quarterbacks. If Wilson gives us the best chance, play him unless injured, and the locker room needs a quarterback like Wilson. 1,000% agree with you on this. Don't be having Jaxson Dart come in for running plays or any. Just pick a quarterback, roll with that quarterback until it's time to move on from that quarterback. I definitely agree with you on that. OG Knockout said, I get what you're saying, but that's college. College is over. It's the big boy league now. Tim Tebow was a great college football player. Let's not forget. You see, this is, again, another moment that I encourage you guys. Do not look at the results. Look at the reps. Why was Tim Tebow a fantastic collegiate quarterback? He oversized his defenders. He ran over people. He was mobile. You didn't see Tim Tebow. Why do you think Tim Tebow was not drafted as a top 5 pick? Because he couldn't throw the fucking ball. That's not the case with Jaxson Dart. Again, don't look at the results, because if you look at the results, you're going to think that Shedeur Sanders is a better quarterback than maybe even Cam Ward. Look at the reps, man. That is what is most important. College is college. When Tim Tebow played in the college, quarterbacks were not as advanced as they are today. The gap between the transition when you came from college to the NFL was much different 10 years ago than it is right now. These quarterbacks are more ready than they have ever been, which is why you're seeing more quarterbacks along with the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement. Obviously, you're trying to capitalize on that early window of having quarterbacks on a cheaper contract. But those two reasons are why quarterbacks are being thrown to the wolves early on. You want to see if you got that guy right now, so that when it comes time to pay him, you're not in this weird limbo like the Jacksonville Jaguars were with Trevor Lawrence, or looking at it like how the Arizona Cardinals are with Kyler Murray, looking at it like, did we possibly pay this guy too much money? You want to find out who you got right now, and the best way to find out who or the capabilities of your quarterback on your roster are to play him in a game. I'm not saying you can't learn from sitting the bench and all that stuff. I'm not opposed to that. But at the end of the day, college, the tape that we see in college, it absolutely is going to translate to the NFL. Tim Tebow is a poor example and also an anomaly of that. Look at quarterbacks that have had experience throwing the ball in college. Recent experience, guys. Brock Purdy. Why do you think Brock Purdy has had so much success in the NFL? It's because of the experience that he had in college, 4 years under his belt. And he's obviously a capable player. Look at Justin Herbert coming out of Oregon and the things that we saw on tape. Look at Josh Allen. Look at Joe Burrow. Look at Jaden Daniels. Look at even Caleb Williams. The things that we saw on tape from him at USC, it is exactly what is happening to him right now in the NFL. He's a guy that is suffering from holding the ball too long, which is why he was the most sacked quarterback in the entire National Football League, along with the Chicago Bears allowing more unblocked defenders on passing plays than any other team in the National Football League. But didn't Caleb Williams look like what we saw at USC if you watched him there? It's exactly what we saw. A quarterback that had a tendency to try to play off script, try to extend plays with his legs, buy time from the quarterback position so that those DBs that aren't NFL caliber DBs will have a tougher time covering his wide receivers down the field, and he can make plays down the field. But Tim Tebow, come on, OG. We can't be using Tim Tebow as the example for what quarterbacks, how they transition from the collegiate level of play to the professional level of play. I just think that's a poor comparison. Like, look at the quarterbacks who had success in college. Look at Bo Nix in college with the amount of snaps and the amount of experience that he had. And I don't know why people were doubting him so much. Comes in as a rookie and wins 10 games and completely balled out. Those are more accurate comparisons than Tim Tebow, man. Like that'd be like looking at a quarterback who ran the veer option in college and had success, and then he gets to the NFL and you're like, well, he didn't throw the ball well in the NFL. Well, duh, obviously, right? Like, that's the reason why Tim Tebow stunk it up. It's also why a lot of teams didn't want to take the risk of drafting a guy like Tim Tebow, right? There's so many factors that factor into an NFL quarterback having success, and I just think that in this day and age now, that transition is much faster. And once you have the skill set, once you have the know-how, you also got to have this as well, right? Like, Johnny Manziel played really good in college and threw the ball really well, but he didn't have that commitment to the position. With Jaxson Dart, I don't see anything there that makes me think that he doesn't have the commitment to the position. Nova Nebula says, how about the fact that every one of these quarterbacks, including DeVito, has made highlights every time we've seen them so far? Yeah, I mean, you got to factor that in too, that it is the preseason, right? The preseason is, you're going up against a lot of guys that on the bubble of rosters and all that stuff, right? And I think that makes it a little bit more of a tougher evaluation. But again, I encourage people, don't look at the results. Look at the reps. That is what is most important when evaluating the quarterback position. And quite frankly, evaluating any position. That's how I see that. And OG Knockout said, don't get me wrong. I'm glad we got this cleanup right here. This might have been before I even went on the rant on OG. He said, Authentic, don't get me wrong. I'm rooting for Jaxson Dart. I just want this dysfunctional organization to bring him on the field at the right time. The Giants have been getting it wrong for years, bro. I mean, not necessarily, right? Because, look, you got to think about it like this, OG. Daniel Jones, you can maybe make that argument, right, that they played him a little bit too early, especially considering that we paid Eli Manning $20 million to come back that year. Like, we could have cut Eli Manning and saved $20 million in 2019. And if you were going to draft a rookie quarterback, then maybe you ask for Eli to take some kind of a pay cut or you bring in a bridge quarterback right away, right? So you could make the argument with Daniel Jones coming in week 3 in 2019 as that was a little bit too early. But then what other example is there, OG? We saw Eli Manning for 2 decades be the quarterback for the New York Giants. There's no other example. Before that, it was Kurt Warner. Do we think that Eli Manning came in too early for Kurt Warner? You could make that argument maybe, but that was in 2004. So it's really a long time ago. And Eli Manning came in when Kurt Warner was, I want to say, around 500. I think Kurt Warner was either 3-3 or 3-4 when Eli Manning came in. Maybe it was a little bit more games than that, because I remember Eli Manning proceeded to lose 7 straight starts, I believe it was, and didn't even have a win in his rookie season. But when you draft a guy that high, fans want to see what's up. Coaches want to see what's up. They want to know what's good. You go before that, I don't know I don't know what the other quarterbacks were that were thrown to the Wolves, right? Because you had Kerry Collins before that. You had what was my dog? Danny Cannell. And then you had, what was the other quarterback from Duke? God, that guy was awful. I don't even remember dude's name from the other quarterback from, I almost had it. I know he wore number 17. Somebody in the chat going to tell me. I forgot his name, but he was terrible as well, too. And then before that, it was Phil Simms, Jeff Hostetler. Phil Simms played from the late 70s into the 90s, man. Like, I make this same argument when people say, like, the New York Giants won't draft a black quarterback, even though they have drafted a black quarterback in, what was that dude in 2006? Something Ward. I forget homie's name, but they have drafted one. But I use this as that example as well, because it's like the Giants have not been in the position to draft a quarterback much and throw him to the Wolves, let alone be drafting a black quarterback. So I don't think there's a lot of validity to that with the New York Giants, because we've had franchise quarterbacks for so long. We're not quite the Green Bay Packers, right? Like, where you only have like 3 franchise quarterbacks since 1989. We're not quite that, but we're in a similar place. You know what I'm saying? Ben Ayers says Russell Wilson was brought in without knowing for sure Jaxson Dart would be a Giant. It's a good point. That's a really good point, man. And, now that you have a quarterback on the roster that you feel good about the future in, it's going to make decisions a little bit difficult for sure. Tone Blue says, what would make it the right time? That's a good question, bro. None of us truly know, right? I think Jaxson Dart's ready now. Not to say that he wouldn't be able to improve his level of play while he was doing that on the job, but what makes it the right time? Because if Jaxson Dart goes out there and win games, nobody going to say nothing. That's really what it is. All right, let me scroll. Dave Brown was the quarterback. Kent Graham, Kent Graham and Dave Brown, those 2 dudes, And one of them was drafted in a supplemental draft, I remember. I think it was Dave Brown. Like, he wasn't, for some reason, he didn't declare for the draft, and then the Giants ended up getting him in the supplemental draft. So a lot of people like to look at him as a first-round pick, but I don't look at him as a first-round pick. And Danny Dudd says Dave Brown over Daniel Jones, and I do agree. Eye test especially. Like, he just looked better. Pete Cho says, I liked Kent Graham, even though he was mid. Yeah, I thought those quarterbacks were mid, but they were okay. Stephen R. says, right, that's not the quarterback the Giants drafted. It was Andre Ward. I want to say it was Andre Ward is the guy that the Giants drafted in the 6th round, like around 2006. Anthony Wright was the first black quarterback to start for the New York Giants. Let's see. And yeah, we're all caught up on the chat, man. So yeah, definitely want to just break that down today. I knew today was going to be a bit of a lengthy show, 2 hours and 15 minutes. Y'all know what it is. I appreciate y'all joining this conversation. This was definitely absolutely a vibe today, man. And it's really great to be back on YouTube talking New York Giants football, man. Like I said, man, we're going to be heavy in the trenches this year. over here on YouTube. So for those y'all that are new here, if any of y'all were new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you like the vibes, man. I try to, my whole goal with this channel is to bring value to the community. And that's the Giants community primarily from my perspective, but also the NFC East community. And that's why you'll see a lot of quarterback compilations on this channel, not just from our team. You'll see it from young quarterbacks around the league, rookie quarterbacks, sophomore quarterbacks, backup quarterbacks, in the NFC East as well. Guys that, deserve to get a shot, guys that were highly touted in this draft. You're going to see me talking about that type of stuff all year long. And I won't shy away from talking about other situations around the NFL as well. But this is predominantly a NFC East channel that is dedicated to the New York Giants fan base and dedicated to the Washington Commanders fan base. So we definitely appreciate y'all being here. And, my whole goal is to just try to bring a different approach. Me and the Beard both live here in the Washington, D.C. area. So we're going to give you guys a different vantage point on the New York Giants and the NFC East than you're going to get from the guys up top that might be a little bit biased in one direction or the other because they're within the market. For me, I view the New York Giants from a personal, particular lens that I just try to share my thoughts on the team with y'all. And again, I try to bring no fluff, and it's no mascot vibes. I'm not here on YouTube to try to make new friends or get more followers or get more likes or get viral videos or any of that shit that comes with the stuff that you're seeing on this platform. Because to me, quite frankly, I think a lot of the shit that's on YouTube right now is just goofy as fuck. And everybody's just chasing the click and these thumbnails with motherfuckers all all that shit is just goofy as shit to me. I'm all about just trying to bring value, the value that, when I sit here and I have the time to be able to break down tape and be able to look at quarterbacks and look at different positions, if I find something that's interesting, my whole goal is to just share that value with you guys over here on YouTube. And I hope y'all appreciate that. And I never look at anybody as a fan of the channel. I look at y'all as fam of the channel because all of y'all are straight up family. And it's great to be able to build those relationships over the years with you guys here over the years, and pun intended on, that saying there from my homie The Beard one time in the chat. But salute to y'all for bringing your perspective today to the channel, man. Just to kind of conclude a couple of things, I want to talk about a few standout players. Safety Makari Page with that interception. It's going to be hard to cut him. He's likely going to be a guy that's going to get cut. He was a standout player at Michigan, but I'd like to see him make the team. Juice Wells had a nice near touchdown. He's another guy that's going to be a fringe roster type of guy. It's going to be tough for him to make the team. Evan Neal, don't follow the agenda. Like I said, look at the reps, man. View the reps, and I try to make that very easy for you guys. Again, you can take a look at that video on the channel. It's got every one of Evan Neal's reps against the Jets. I encourage y'all to go out there and go check out Bobby Skinner's offensive line breakdown as well. I'm going to do that as I round out my afternoon here as well. But just don't follow the agendas. Follow the reps. James Hudson, left tackle, is looking like a waste of money right now. $6 million AAV, that might be going down the drain, barring a miracle here. Dylan Cambray at the wide receiver position. Love the explosive play. Great catch from that pass from Jameis Winston, as the homie was saying earlier. Probably the best throw of the day of any of the quarterbacks, but also a fantastic catch. Jordan Bly, the other wide receiver, caught a nice touchdown as well in this game. He's going to be another bubble guy. Maybe he can make the practice squad and maybe be a contributor somewhere down the line for the New York Giants. Darius Alexander, he had a nice pressure in the fourth quarter. We want to see more of that. We want to see Darius Alexander turn into one of those cornerstone pieces for the New York Giants. It'll be amazing to have two cornerstone pieces on the interior portion of this defensive line. I'd love to see that. Jalen Hyatt, it's an agenda by me a little bit. I want to see Jalen Hyatt turn into the wide receiver that I know he's capable of being. It was good to see him out there running some crispy routes. To kind of round this out here, one, we have three quarterbacks on this roster who can start right now. That's my opinion on it. Two, the wide receiver cuts and the tight end cuts are going to be the most difficult positions to assess for the New York Giants front office, and who they're going to keep on that active 53-man roster that's going to come out a week from tomorrow. Lil Jordan Humphrey is a guy I think should make this roster. Bo Collins and Montrell Washington are guys that I think deserve to make the roster. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to make the roster. You can throw Juice Wells into that bunch as well. He looked really good against the Jets. Montrell Washington looked really good against the Buffalo Bills. They're all not going to make the team, and that's just the unfortunate truth about the NFL. A lot of good players are not going to be able to make the roster, and that's going to be tough for us. If the Giants, lastly, want to shock the world, it starts with that pass rush. And I think there was a lot left out there to be desired on the field from the first two preseason games, being that we left both of those games with 0 sacks, it's just not sitting that well with me. But at the end of the day, it's the preseason, and I'm going to pump the brakes on that, and I won't, I'm not. It's not time to hit the panic button or nothing like that. And the last thing is, I think the offensive line is going to be absolutely fine moving into this season. I just want to make sure we got rid of all the super chats here before we get up out of here. And yes, we did. Let me see some biceps in the chat one time before we get up out of here, man. Again, salute to our small corner of the internet for supporting what we do over here, because we couldn't do this without y'all. And although this channel is not about numbers and it's not about likes and it's not about none of that stuff, an audience is extremely important. And we truly, truly appreciate it, and we respect all of y'all for showing support to this channel, because me and the Beard truly try to put our foot into this content game. I always tell y'all that I hear a lot of these content creators out there saying like, oh, no, I don't take notes and I don't look at tape and I don't do that. That's some shit that, in my opinion, nobody should pride themselves on, right? Because if you're going to put something out there, a product for people to view and enjoy, then you should bring value to that and you should take your time with it, unless you don't have the time. Fortunately for me, I do have the time. I'm in this studio that you're viewing right here, in this chair all damn day. I'm either making music, I'm either looking at tape, or I'm looking at ways to try to improve this channel. So salute to y'all for supporting what we do over here, because we know that high quality doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be supported, and that y'all are recognizing what we are doing over here, that we have built this channel from 0 all the way up to whatever we're at now, 6,000 subscribers we got, and that we know a good chunk of this fan base. We appreciate that, man, and we real recognize real. And listen, my chat is looking extremely familiar. So big salute to all of y'all, and especially y'all that aren't New York Giants fans, the Cowboys fans, the Commanders fans, the Eagles fans who chime into this channel week in and week out. We respect and completely appreciate that support. So shout out to all of y'all, man. I see Steven Arce in the building, Victor Castro, Kevin the PRF, Welvin, Kansan Zero with the biceps, Pete Cho, Chris Peace, man. Shout out to Chris Peace, man. He does so much to support this channel. Jesser, Hyphen Wade is in the building. What's going on, Hyphen Wade? I appreciate you. Steven Arce says, Authentic, are you on the Fall Off J. Cole album? No, I haven't worked with J. Cole since that last session that I had with him leading up to the off-season album. And honestly, I'm in a different point right now in my life where it's like I've taken so many less big-name sessions and just sessions in general. From an audio engineer and a production standpoint, I'm more now trying to be that mentor, helping out a lot of my younger artists, helping them skip hurdles and things like that. I haven't really worked with a lot of big-name artists, in the last couple of years. Really just worked with Wale in a session recently where it didn't go that well. From my perspective, where it was like he wanted to come back and work, and I was kind of like, I don't know how this is vibing out, man. I don't know if I'm feeling this. Maybe you should find another engineer to work with. But outside of that, just working with my dog Chaz French and whatnot. But no Fall Off album, but I'm looking forward to it. Hip hop is in a pretty good space right now, man. A lot of lyrical stuff coming back, and I'm working on some of my own music as well to be released. Hopefully, I ain't gonna put no date on it, because like I said, I don't like putting things out there in the atmosphere when they're not truly out there in the atmosphere. So we're working on some music. Shout out to Mal one time. Mal said, going to the next preseason game, let's go 3-0, man. Hopefully your presence there gives us the luck that we need to be able to go out there and win that game against the Patriots on Thursday. And that'll be the preseason finale. I'm looking forward to it. But again, man, salute to all of you guys, man, for rocking out with us for over 2 hours on this Giant Overreaction. It was definitely a vibe. You guys can look forward to these shows happening from now on every Monday going throughout the entire season, and we'll see how things go in the offseason leading up to the draft. I do want to take a lot of my draft content and evaluation over here and rock out with you guys a little bit more come the 2026 NFL draft. But when we get there, we'll address that right there. Authentic in the Beard in the building says, no Brian Robinson tonight. Yeah, man, there's one of my fellow Bleacher Report analysts also talked about it, and he said, yeah, they are shopping Brian Robinson, which is interesting. I think that's just maybe a not matching the scheme as well as they would like him to. But he had a pretty decent year last year, 800 yards, and he missed a couple of games. Listen, as a Giants fan, I'd welcome Brian Robinson all day. I don't know what's up with that. That's kind of wild. Mike Alexander said, not sure if you talked about it, but how do you feel about Bo Collins? Love Bo Collins, and if you don't know my co-host, he's a Notre Dame fan. He put me on to Bo Collins when he first got to Notre Dame, when he came over there from Clemson and whatnot. And I like Bo Collins. I think that he lacks a little bit of the top-end speed, but he's a well-rounded wide receiver, and he should make this roster. Hopefully he does. But it's a crowded room, man. You know, you got Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, the three that will absolutely make the roster, right? And if it goes the way that the Giants have done in the past, they'll probably keep 6 wide receivers. I think no more than 7. So you got a ton of guys that are, you know, bidding for those last 3 to 4 spots. It's going to be extremely tough, man. So we'll see how things go. I see Sean Jaxson just pulled up in the building. Make sure you go check that replay. We're signing off here just in a second, but shout out to Sean Jaxson for pulling up. That's one of our day ones for sure, man. So again, man, I thank you guys for rocking out with us today. Y'all know what it is. Stephen R. said Devin Singletary for B-Rob. I would do that in a heartbeat, bro. B-Rob would be able to contribute to this offense in a major way. But we will be back this week again. I do plan on going live again this week. And, you know, if you guys want to check me out on the recaps on Bleacher Report, we will be doing one of those Thursday at the immediate conclusion of the game. So go ahead and download the Bleacher Report app. I will be doing all the game recaps on Bleacher Report throughout the entirety of the season, preseason as well. Looking forward to the Giants on Hard Knocks in December. That's going to be a vibe, man. I'm you know, as a cinematographer, man, that's my love, that's my passion. And seeing that kind of content being created is just, it's the best of it. It's the best of both worlds for me because I don't enjoy anything more than filming, you know, with my camera. My rig is right here, man. I've been building that rig for like 2 years now, and that's one of my passions. I just love filming it. Time flies by when I'm behind that camera, and Hard Knocks is just the best of both worlds because I love talking and assessing football, and then you bring the cinematography aspect to it, and yeah, man, it's an amazing thing. Let me see. Christopher Moody said Wells, Washington, and Collins deserve to make it. They do. Mike Alexander said, I like Collins, though. I think we could use him. Absolutely. And he said, Steven, yeah, that's a pause. Facts. He said, take it, Beard, and you going to like it. Yeah, that's an egregious pause right there. But that's going to do it for the first rendition of the Giant Overreaction for the 2025 season, man. Again, hit that subscribe button. And for those of y'all that don't know, we end these shows the same way every time, y'all. Keep raising that bar, keep living those dreams because the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound. And a life without dreams is a life in black and white. Rest in peace to the podcast GOAT Combat Jack, the New York legend. And that's a wrap, man. I see my dog, Big Dash Nose, is in the building, man. Y'all go subscribe to Big Dash, man. He's doing big things, man. Dash, we got to get a little Giant Overreaction where I'll bring you up on here as a guest very shortly. But for those of y'all that are watching this replay right now, let me get some biceps in the chat when you see this on the replay. That's going to do it for this rendition of the Giant Overreaction. I see the Illa, I shouted you out big time on this show, bro. Y'all go subscribe to the Illa as well. And I'll catch y'all on the next version of the Giant Overreaction, man. It was definitely a vibe today. Glad to be back, man. Salute to y'all. I hope y'all enjoy the rest of y'all week. And hopefully the New York Giants get a victory against the New England Patriots on Thursday. Y'all know what it is, man. Go New York Giants one time. And that's a wrap, y'all. Y'all be easy, man. Peace. I'll catch y'all on the flip side.